Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen steals a house and her family congratulates her, but I taught her a lesson. I want to get along with everyone, but my wife's extended family is full of some really bad people. They're perfectly nice to everyone's faces, but no sense of morals. They're the kind of people that think that scamming and stealing is a legit way to get ahead in the world and be an accomplishment. For an example, one of my wife's uncles chose gaming over working during his marriage, and when his wife divorced him for cheating on her, he won alimony and half of our money, which totaled to over $500,000. After he got it, he bragged and everyone congratulated him on becoming financially stable. Those kinds of people. Of course, my wife loves her family, so we see them frequently. I'm trying to raise my kids to have actual morals, so I try to counteract the lessons they're learning from that side whenever I see it. The big news at Thanksgiving was that one of my wife's cousins, Tia, and her husband just became homeowners for the first time this year. She and her husband are young, so there were a lot of questions, and the story was recounted. Well, her husband's grandma passed. She had left the house to her kids to split, but her lawyer father-in-law figured out a loophole to take the entire house for just his son, and he had him jump on it before the rest of the family even had a chance to know about it. He wanted to help out his son, so he paid the entire cost to make it happen as a wedding gift, and to be able to do over his ex-wife and her siblings, no doubt. Per usual, everyone was congratulating them. I tried to have a side conversation with my kids to make sure they knew that they really stole the house, and that wasn't right. It was overheard and started a whole thing about how it wasn't Tia's fault and what did I expect her to do. I'm willing to give that it's a little bit of an exception because while it was actively being done, she didn't even know anything about it because she was in the psych ward at the time, but she does now and she's certainly reaping the benefits. If something you want to not be complicit in happens, you have to do something to go against it. You don't get to go, it wasn't my fault and therefore I don't have any responsibility here, while you waltz around your free house every day, still cuddling up to the person that stole it. Everyone accused me of bullying her when I know she's vulnerable and being too hard on her for just trying to be a good wife and survive when I know she's had a hard time. And they think that this is such a good break for her, so why can't I just be happy for her? I wanted to keep the peace, so I said that we see things differently, and I told my wife I was leaving and would pick her up when she was ready. After I left, Tia apparently had a panic attack and had to be calmed down. And now I'm enemy number one and they all want an apology. I don't want to give one because I'm not in the wrong. Is this really something that I'm supposed to be okay with? Unless you want your kids to grow up to be just like them, this is definitely the hill to die on. You need to have a conversation with your spouse about how you don't want her family's low morals spreading to your kids. But do so calmly and give her a chance to explain her side without interruptions. Once she has, ask her to allow you to explain yourself in a similar fashion. Make sure to try and cite examples of situations you don't agree with and how you're worried this will affect your growing perception of your kids. Also, ask how she would feel if her family felt they could get ahead at your expense. Because if they think conning a family out of rightful inheritance is brilliant, then they probably wouldn't think twice about doing you over for the sake of your spouse. If she fails to see any of your points, I'd make sure you have one heck of a lawyer that you can trust. As to the cousin's panic attack, not your problem. She better get used to people outside the family thinking she and her husband are scum, because they are. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for exposing my ex-girlfriend to her fiancé? I, 26 male, dated my ex-girlfriend in high school when we were both 16. I'd had a crush on her since we were little, so when she finally agreed to go out with me in high school, I was over the moon. Unfortunately, our relationship was a nightmare. I quickly realized she had low self-esteem, constantly asked for reassurance from me about her looks and weight, and if I didn't tell her exactly what she wanted to hear, she would gaslight and manipulate me to make me feel guilty. I didn't realize at the time, but after reading stuff online and listening to podcasts, I realized her behavior was not acceptable. We dated for around 1 year, and she ended up breaking up with me, citing her mental health, etc. I never saw her after high school because we moved to different cities, and also her social media accounts were set to private. Recently, there was a high school reunion. I found out she would be there, so I decided to go. She hadn't changed much, still looks the same. She said hi to me as if nothing had happened and proceeded to make small talk with me. It really bothered me that she was pretending nothing happened between us, so I asked if we could talk privately. I told her about how I felt about the way she treated me when we were dating. She said something like she was going through a tough time with her self-confidence and apologized for taking it out on me, etc. Said ever since she met her current partner, she was feeling more confident about herself. She then told me they were engaged, which also came as a shock to me. I asked her if she had told him about us and how she treated me when we were dating. She said she mentioned her past relationships to him, but didn't share all the details. I told her she needs to tell him about how she was towards me so that he knows who he's marrying. At this point, she made up some excuse and ran away from the conversation. I felt that the new partner should know what he's getting into. She still looks the same and has not made any effort to change or improve herself and probably has the same insecurities, and I imagine how this man will have a terrible marriage. So after the party, I used a friend's account to find her fiancé, and I sent him a message detailing the things she did when we were dating in high school. He responded with something like asking me to stop bothering them, whatever that's supposed to mean. It's been about a week since I did this, and now I'm getting bombarded with messages from high school friends calling me a creep and a jerk. I don't understand how people can side with her when she was the one mistreating me, and it's her responsibility to let her fiancé know about this. I was doing what I felt was right. I thought maybe they're reacting to this because they don't have the full story and the background about our relationship. So I wanted to post here. Am I the jerk, or am I helping this poor man? Edit. Reading through your comments is making me question myself. First of all, I don't have a problem with how she looks. I think she's cute. It may be true that I am hung up on her. Gee, you think? She was my first and my only long-term girlfriend. I do think I deserved more from her than an apology, and I did always think we would end up together once she worked on herself. I feel very frustrated about how things turned out. I'm against therapy, so I won't do that. I might contact her again to see if she'll talk to me. Maybe that will bring more closure. Even though it was mostly negative, I still appreciate the comments. So, you corner someone you dated years ago. She listens to you before stopping the conversation because it's going nowhere. Then you harass her fiancé and try to blow up her life? Jealous and bitter much? You're the jerk, big time. You're the jerk. Get over it. You just proved to the world that you're fixated on her. Is it possible she's changed since high school? Is it none of your business? You knew her then, her fiancé knows her now, and you know nothing about either of them anymore. Get your nose out of her business. You're the jerk. OP. I agree she may have changed. I did keep track of her through common friends and was following where she was in life. I didn't know she was engaged. This came as a big shock to me. I feel that I know her better than her fiancé since I knew her since we were 8, and even though we didn't speak since high school, I did get updates on her via mutual friends. I thought maybe if we tried again together as adults, we could have a better relationship this time. And if she apologized for mistreating me and promised she would be better this time around, I was willing to give her another chance. But I don't see any evidence about her having changed, so I wasn't sure. Update. Just got done speaking to her. After the initial surge of comments here, I decided to contact her. I got her info from a friend and messaged her, and she agreed to talk to me. I apologized for contacting her fiancé, and she said she accepts my apology. She said she's sorry about the things that happened in our relationship. She said she had therapy, and now she has more confidence. She told me that she has been honest with her fiancé about her life and past, and he's really supportive of her. Overall, she sounded in a better place, and it sounds like I don't really have a chance with her at the moment. We ended the conversation pretty amicably. I feel okay with where things are now. Reading these comments was hard on me, but I don't have much control over how people interpret things, so thanks, I guess, for the comments. My sister, my boyfriend, and my parents have completely stopped engaging with me. I, 27 female, have a younger sister, Jenny, who's 25. Jenny has been with and married to her husband, Jake, who's 27, for almost 3 years, together for 5. They really do seem like a match made in heaven. However, one thing she struggled with for a long time is infertility. Jenny has wanted kids for as long as I can remember, but when they started trying 3 years ago, it just never happened. They tried everything, but their doctor just said Jenny wasn't capable of carrying a baby to term. They've since looked into adoption or even surrogacy, though it is way above their budget. I, on the other hand, have never wanted kids. Not when I was a kid, not now, and hopefully I'll never have any in the future. I don't know why, but kids make me anxious, and childbirth is just a nightmare to even think about. Recently, I found out I was pregnant. It was a complete shock and sent me into a panic attack. My boyfriend, who's 29, was upset when I immediately suggested ending the pregnancy. I told him I didn't want kids ever, but he was adamant on not ending the pregnancy. He suggested taking full custody and raising the baby all by himself if that's what I wanted. He reluctantly even suggested adopting the baby out of my hands completely. Anything, but he was not willing to be without the baby. My parents reacted worse. They said they wouldn't allow me to hurt a living being and offered other options. They even told my sister, who just jumped at the chance to adopt my baby, saying it was perfect and the baby could remain in the family and be raised by loving parents. Now, I don't doubt they'd make great parents, but I just don't want to go through a pregnancy. Every moment felt like an explosion would go off at any moment. I hated it and I refused to continue with the pregnancy. I went behind their backs and got the procedure done. When they found out, my boyfriend just coldly told me that we're done and he walked out. He isn't taking my calls now. Jenny wailed and insulted me before Jake took her home. She then blocked me and has since refused to even look at me. My parents keep saying they're just disappointed in me and wished I wasn't their daughter so they wouldn't have to deal with me. I just want to fix things with them. They're my family and have always been kind and caring. I desperately want to sort their problems out and for things to go back to how it was before I got pregnant. Any advice on how I can explain my feelings to my family? Edit. Oh, please. My parents and my sister and boyfriend are not bad people. I know I wasn't in the wrong for making my choice, and neither do I think they're wrong for how they feel about it. My parents have cared for, raised, and supported me all my life. Through my teenage years, my studies, my relationship issues, career problems, everything. I know they aren't bad people. I just want to know how I can explain my feelings to them because I'm confused and struggling with expressing myself. My boyfriend and I have been together for 9 years. We literally grew up together and promised to always be there for each other and always choose each other. He supported me through everything. He offered every help he could think of during the 2.5 months I was pregnant. He tried to understand my fears and help me through it. I understand I was wrong to go behind his back, but that's done, and now I want to know how we can move past this. He didn't leave when people made fun of him for dating me, when college life got too hectic and we had to go days without seeing each other, when my grandma passed, when I was sick, or when I was terrified of a baby. He was there for all of it, and I don't want to be without him. Please help me convince him to seek counseling or therapy or whatever it takes. I can't bear to lose him. The ship with your boyfriend has sailed. I don't think you two will ever be able to recover from this. The reality is, your pregnancy made him realize how much he wants to be a father. You don't want to be a mother. Therefore, you two are no longer compatible. Your family may or may not come back around in time, but there will be no coming back from this breakup. 9 years or 20 years, you're fundamentally incompatible, and that's not reconcilable. No one is wrong in this situation, except the parents and sister who had no right to involve themselves in the first place. You made the choice you felt was right for you, not going through with the pregnancy. He made the choice not to continue the relationship based on your choice, which he felt was right for him. Regardless of what you ended up doing, you were already standing on two opposite cliffs with your boyfriend, and there was never going to be a solid bridge between you. I'm sorry for your loss, all of it, but it wasn't going to work out once you both expressed wholly opposite views on childbearing. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend's kid I don't intend on being her mom? Context. I, 34, female, have been in a casual long-distance relationship for 2 years with Matt, who's 40. I set boundaries at the start of our relationship. We will never live together. He will not be involved with my kids or my family. I won't be involved in his. My kids have a dad that's very active in their lives, and we co-parent amazingly. The relationship I have with Matt is just that, with him. Matt agreed to these terms. Everything was great. We never argue because we have nothing to argue about. We have our separate lives, and when we're together, it's like a break from the real world. Matt is relocating closer to me because he's grown tired of the city and wants to live in a more rural place like I currently live in. He will still be roughly over an hour away, so it's within comfort. His daughter, Ava, is 12, and he was unable to leave her home as his mom had a slip and fall and wasn't comfortable watching Ava while she was on heavy medication. She just wants to rest. He wasn't comfortable leaving her at the hotel alone, so he asked me to watch her. I agreed, and we both understood it's a one-time thing. He tells Ava I'm an old friend, but I'm guessing she's heard my name before. It's not a traditional American name because of what follows. She was being mean to my daughter, Rose, who's 11, making fun of her blemishes. I asked Ava if she wanted to go to the basement to play any of the games down there. She said no, so I told Rose to go to the basement, so she did. I then catch Ava slowly opening the basement door, and I ask her to go to the living room. She refuses and opens the basement door all the way. I tell her she's not allowed down there right now, but she's welcome to the Wii in the living room, or she can pick a movie to stream. We go back and forth, then I walk to the basement door and shut it. She starts screaming at me that I'm not her mom, so don't try to act like it. That's when I told her, "Baby, it never crossed my mind because I have my own kids to parent. I have no intention of trying to be anything to you. I'm just helping your dad." She went to the living room and occupied herself with her phone. I made lunch, served it. She didn't touch it. Cheese quesadillas. Her dad picked her up later, and when he got back to the hotel, he called me about what I said. He said he understands why I said what I did, and it's true, but it was out of pocket to say it to her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your boyfriend should have told her the lay of the land beforehand. I don't think it would be a good idea to do this again. Puberty plus a new partner of a parent is a bomb waiting to go off, and you're justified in not wanting to deal with that. OP, I agree. At this point, I'm sure she's put it together that when she has her weekend at grandma's, he's not sitting at home, so this will only get worse. Not the jerk. I thought that what you said was perfect. She was blaming her disobedience on you not being her mom, and you were like, I don't want to be your mom, but I still get to set the rules in my own house. Good on you. You're the jerk, but not for this specific question. Your casual boyfriend is moving closer to you. You blurred your boundaries by watching his kid. You and him are clearly in different headspaces when it comes to the relationship. Time to have a serious talk. I agree. Their relationship reads very much as friends with benefits and not a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. While I do admit that the friend's daughter was disrespectful, I think OP was too harsh with her response of, I have my own kids. To me, this reads, you're not my kid and you never will be. It just feels mean to me. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for what she said or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for suggesting calling off the wedding because she thinks the prenup is unfair? My girlfriend, who's 26, and I, male 24, just found out that she's pregnant. She's adamant about not wanting to have a kid out of wedlock, so we've been discussing getting married. We've been together for 3.5 years. Prior to finding out about the baby, we had only talked about marriage a bit. I know she wants to get married badly, but I'm kind of on the other side of the fence. I'm not 100% against it, but definitely not eager or desperate to get married for multiple reasons. For one, my brother just recently got taken to the cleaners by his ex-wife. He pays her like $10,000 a month in addition to losing some of his properties. And that whole situation terrifies me, and I've never really seen what a marriage provides that makes the risk worth it. To me, it's just the same as being together how we currently are, but giving the state permission to be in our relationship. However, now that she's pregnant, I've been more open to it just because I know how much it means to her. So we've started this process, and I'm slowly realizing that I may have bitten off more than I can chew. While me and my girlfriend love each other very much and are compatible in pretty much every way, our ideas about marriage, the wedding, etc. seem to be a little different. For starters, for the wedding, I was thinking we each pick some of our closest people, maybe 10 or so each, and we get married on an island or a beach, stay for a week or two, something cool like that so we can have fun and enjoy it. She pretty much wants the exact opposite. Massive wedding in a big venue. Now, I don't see anything wrong with that type of wedding. It just seems like such a colossal waste of resources to invite every person we know when we could instead have fun for a week or two, then get married on the beach with our closest friends and family. It doesn't necessarily have to be the beach. I'm flexible. But I think you get the idea I'm going for versus the idea she's going for. They're two completely different schools of thought. She basically wants to invite every single person she knows. Like, I've looked at her list, and she's got friends she hasn't seen in years, third cousins, literally everyone. To me, if I'm gonna spend a boatload of money, we should do it for ourselves, not people we barely know. We've been talking about compromises and making slow progress on that end, but we were getting there. She knew prior to getting married I would require a prenup. I make about 4 times her salary, and I own property and plan to acquire more. I had my lawyer draft up a prenup, and she has her lawyer reviewing it. This is where we came to an impasse. Her lawyer believed the prenup was unfair, and we've been going back and forth making changes. I've made some concessions, but I'm kind of at a point where I don't want to make any more. While I admit the prenup is definitely ironclad, I think it's fair considering the situation. I'm taking all the risk. Why would I continue to concede on things me and my lawyer both believe are fair? So recently, we got into a minor argument over wedding stuff in general regarding the prenup and wedding, and I was just like, maybe we should just keep things how they are. Of course, she flipped. We've cooled down since, and she says she still wants to make this happen, but that I need to be more open to compromise. I feel like, given this situation, I've compromised more than I already should have. I talked to my brother about it, and he told me I've compromised more than enough and to hold firm, and worst case, you stay girlfriend-boyfriend, which is realistically probably better anyways. My sister disagrees and says I'm being a jerk for not working with her more. The way I see it, why would I risk everything I've worked for when I'm not even getting the wedding I want, nor the financial protection I want, just so I can say I'm married? There's just very few tangible benefits I'd be getting in relation to the risk. So, am I the jerk? Update. We ended up having a discussion about the whole marriage thing where we both were able to get our opinions and concerns out there. Just me and her, no lawyers, no anything. It was really helpful because it let both of us get our concerns out there. We ended up agreeing that the whole marriage and prenup situation was too stressful right now while we were dealing with so many things, pregnancy, moving in, etc. So we agreed that for now, we would focus on the baby and pin the marriage conversation for now. I agreed I would be open to discussing it again in a couple of years once everything is settled down, and she ended up being satisfied with that. That was last week, and as of a couple days ago, we finished moving the rest of her stuff to my place. Her lease ends at the end of this month, and all that is left in the apartment is some furniture she plans to give to her family. And since this is my last post about the situation, I'll provide some clarity about why I didn't want to compromise any further on the prenup. The language that my lawyer and I chose to use was very definitive about what would happen in the event of a divorce. On the other hand, hers was not. Again, still not going into details, but I'll say what my lawyer told me. He basically said that if I were to concede the language any further, he could no longer give me a guarantee on what I stand to lose. He said at that point, I would pretty much be at the mercy of the judge's interpretation, meaning anything could happen, especially considering the fact that we live in California. For me, that would defeat the entire purpose of the prenup, which is why I wasn't willing to concede on it. I actually was willing to concede on the actual wedding plans, but I just couldn't imagine letting a court system that is historically pretty unfair have the final say over my assets. I assured my girlfriend that in the event that we separated, I would make sure she was still taken care of, which made her feel better about the whole situation as well. I don't think my problem was necessarily the commitment to her. It was more the fact that someone else would have the final say over everything in the scenario where things go wrong versus myself having the final say, which, as many of you have pointed out, means I'm just not ready for marriage. Reddit is so Reddit sometimes. Dude wants to protect his family wealth going into a marriage, and he's being crucified for it? Never change, Reddit. Never change. I get a lot of people here do not have the experience of having generational wealth, but let me put it this way. Imagine you own some nice assets, like a couple of houses or something along those lines. Nothing outrageous, but decent. Now you have two choices here. Get some sort of agreement in place before marriage to ensure that these assets are protected and the benefits from them can be passed down to your kids, or two, let the government handle it and then have it sold during a divorce with half the proceeds going to your wife who can now spend it however she pleases, including on her new boyfriends or kids with other men, or for plastic surgery or whatever else she wants. I have a family trust with some assets in it, shares and property, that my wife has no part of and will never have any part of. The beneficiaries were initially just me, but since they've been born, my kids have been added to it. My wife will never, ever be added to it. That money is for me and my kids. There is nothing wrong about wanting to protect your assets so that they benefit you or your kids. Wow, cool that you don't see your wife as family. Does she realize you see her this way? Pretty crazy that this woman is just a vessel to give you kids, but is not actually family herself. This line of thinking is exactly why people keep making horrible mistakes like the one my grandfather did. He died without any sort of asset protection in place, and instead of his kids getting his estate, his surviving second wife looted everything and gave it to her adult kids. I mean, you can try to shame people for not being idiots, but at the end of the day, idiots are people who don't plan for the eventualities of life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his fiancé? Please let us know. My boyfriend lied about quitting his job and put our housing in jeopardy. How do I get past this? I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years. After he got a job in an apartment building, we decided to move into an apartment there because he would get a big discount on rent. A year or so after living there, he started to hate his job due to the stress of having an understaffed team and long working hours. I suggested that he look for a new job if he was unhappy there, but he continued to stick it out because of how good the rental discount was. Well, one day, he comes home in the middle of the workday and says he's taking the rest of the day off. 2 days go by and he still hasn't gone back to work. I ask him what's up, and he says that he just needs to use up some extra days of paid time off. The weekend comes around, and while out to dinner with friends, he gets a little drunk and basically reveals to me and to other friends at the table that he quit his job on the spot for good. On the way home, I ask him why he waited so long to tell me, and why he would just quit cold turkey without a new job lined up, especially considering that his contract states that once he stops working at the apartment, we have to be moved out within 4 weeks. Plus, at this point, he owed me a couple $1,000s from shared expenses that he was catching up on. He said he was sick of working there and waited to tell me because he needed time to process it, but that he would figure out his work and our living situation. Fast forward a week later, and we've applied for a new apartment. A few days later, we get denied due to rental history. I call the screening company to ask why, and they say that we have an outstanding balance at the current property we live at for last month's rent being late, and now an open eviction filed because of it. I'm completely stunned because I send my portion of rent to my boyfriend every month and we pay on time. Turns out my boyfriend hadn't paid the rent and got served the eviction notice one day while I wasn't home, all before we had even applied to the new place, and he didn't tell me about any of it. I paid off the outstanding balance so that we could get the eviction filing dismissed. Luckily, I was only listed as an occupant and not as a leaseholder, so the eviction wasn't on my record too. But I'm livid because not only did he omit important info from me again, but now that meant he couldn't apply to a new place with me, since most places will automatically deny you with an eviction filing on your record. So now we had fewer apartment options since we'd only be applying with just my income instead of both of our incomes. So a week before we needed to move out, I found a new place to apply to, and with the help of my dad co-signing with me, I was able to get approved for it. I'm self-employed, so it's hard for me to get approved by myself, even though I make over 3 times the rent. It's been 2 months now, and my boyfriend still is unemployed. I'm covering all the expenses, and at this point, he owes me almost $7,000, since I've been covering his half of the rent plus our other living expenses. He uses my car to deliver for Uber Eats, but it's just not enough since he also has student loans and other bills to pay. I just don't feel like he's doing everything he can to find a job and pay me back, and the lies he told are making it hard for me to trust him. It feels like his decisions were so impulsive and he didn't even stop to consider how they would affect me. And whenever I try to address it with him, he gets really defensive and says I need to understand that he needed to do what was best for him and his mental health at the time. Would you be able to trust your partner again after something like this? Is this something worth breaking up over? How long would you wait for your partner to get their act together? Or what would they need to do to make things right? Why even get past it? Know that in a crisis, he will sink your shared ship without even giving you the courtesy of a heads up. Then he will lie about it for as long as he can manage to get away with it. In 7 months, he will spend every dollar of yours without a concern. You're turning to your parents to bail you out because he wouldn't even grab a bucket to help keep you from sinking. Ask him to leave. Whatever he could conceivably do to make this right at this point, it needs to stop being done on your dime. You dump him before he permanently ruins your life. He's a mooch. His career plan is for you to pay all his bills while he lies to you. You would be foolish to trust him. He's proven himself unworthy of that. My wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. During a huge fight, my wife told me that I'm not our daughter's father. My wife and I have a 6-year-old daughter together. We've been married for almost 9 years. We got into a really big argument, which isn't unusual for us these days. We've been on the verge of divorce multiple times, but always end up changing our minds. This time, she got so mad that she yelled at the top of her lungs, "She's not even your daughter, and he was a better hookup too." She being our daughter, of course. My wife's facial expression told me immediately that she had realized what she had said. Then she claimed she was just mad and said it just to be mean. It's not true, blah blah blah. It made me start to think about when our daughter was conceived. We had been having marital problems even back then. We had actually kind of informally separated for a short time, and I was pretty sure I was done with the whole thing, but we both changed our minds. I can't help but wonder if she was with somebody else during that time. She could have just said what she said to be cruel, but that's a pretty serious thing to say. I'm looking at my daughter and wondering if features I thought she got from me really aren't for me at all. She looks so much like my wife that it's hard to see much of anyone else in her at all anyway. I love my daughter. I love being a dad, her dad. I feel like I was meant to do it. We have such a great relationship. She loves her mom, but my daughter and I just have a special bond that my wife has said that she's jealous of. That may be why she said what she did. I don't know. It wouldn't change how I felt about my daughter, but my wife would definitely no longer be my wife. It scares me to even think that somebody else could have some sort of parental right to my kid, even though I'm still legally her father regardless of DNA. It's not like a random guy is going to want to come along all these years later and try to establish paternity anyway, but it's still unsettling. I'm probably overthinking it, and my wife was most likely just trying to be extra cruel, which is her defense mechanism in arguments. But I just wish that I could stop thinking about it. True or false? I would not want to stay with the person who said that. She opened that door. Do the DNA test. You're avoiding the DNA test because you don't want to feel more crappy than you already do. The percentage of kids born from their moms cheating is actually extraordinarily high. I feel bad for you, man, but this sort of thing is incredibly common. The number of guys out there raising other men's children without even knowing is just insane. You've become a statistic, and I hope you learn from this. You shouldn't have stayed with her if she was problematic from the jump. Well, what do you think? Should OP get a DNA test or not? Please let us know. I don't care how evil someone is. Saying something like that? Dude, there's a reason she said it. My boyfriend's mother keeps putting an ingredient that I'm allergic to in her dishes, with updates. This has been somewhat of a nightmare, so any advice would be amazing. My boyfriend is also 23 for clarity. I have a garlic allergy. It's not lethal, and I definitely wouldn't get anaphylaxis or something from it. The problem is that I get asthma if I eat it, and I'll really mess up my digestion later. Everyone in my life knows that I can't have garlic, and I won't have garlic. It makes eating out a nightmare because of how prevalent it is. So usually my boyfriend and I have date nights at our apartment, and we cook for each other. But my boyfriend's mom has a family tradition, and she insists we all come to dinner at least once a month. She's a fantastic cook, and usually a really nice lady to be around. But there's one problem. She wants me to come every time, but she always adds garlic to every dish. At this point, I've just started taking an inhaler and just eating the Hawaiian rolls that she always serves. My boyfriend drives us, and we just go get fast food right after. We've talked to her over and over about the garlic. I've asked her over and over to please not use garlic, and she says she doesn't understand how it's such a big deal because it's not like you'll die. I've tried skipping the meals, but she throws a fit and drags her entire family into it. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years now, and I'm best friends with his sister. I'm at my wit's end. How do I get this through to her? Edit. I have brought my own food before, usually something like simple mac and cheese. I did it twice, but both times she was angry and basically made for an incredibly unhappy evening. Update. To those of you who said she just didn't like me, you are 100% correct. After my boyfriend woke up yesterday, we had a long talk about how bothersome his mother's refusal to take out garlic is. He agreed that we should skip the dinner until she takes it out. Something about it still bothered me, so I ended up calling her and just bluntly asking her. She kept evading the question, saying she's just a garlic lover, that she doesn't understand what the big deal is, etc. Finally, after like 30 minutes of back and forth, she finally admitted that she just doesn't like me. I think I'm correct in drawing the conclusion that she was trying to drive me away from her family with garlic shenanigans, but maybe I'm just overthinking, I don't know. Anyways, I asked if it was because of my job. I'm a receptionist. My age, background, whatever. And she just flat out told me that she doesn't like that I have my septum and my tongue done, and that I color my hair unnatural colors. She thinks it's unprofessional and proves that I'm too much of a wild child to date her son. Which sucks, because I really like this woman, but I guess she was just polite out of courtesy rather than actually liking me herself. After I ended the call, I went to go find my boyfriend, and he basically fessed up and said that, yeah, his mother was not a fan and kept basically hinting that we should break up. Mostly by mentioning stuff like, my friend Jenny has such a cute daughter, and that sort of thing, which really hurts, but I'm glad I know now. Anyways, my boyfriend and his sister have both agreed to just start up a group dinner once a month. I'm going to stop going to the dinners, and my boyfriend will just go without me. Update. I broke up with him and basically spent the day fielding texts from him asking what was going on and why I was freaking out over his mom. As I said in the update, I got the ick. The more I thought about how he didn't defend me to his mother, refused to tell me about her underhanded tactics, the more I just didn't like him anymore. It was like a switch flipped. So when he woke up, he got a call from me saying this wouldn't work out. We had a long conversation that basically turned into him being defensive. In the end, I was firm. I also sent a text to his sister along the lines of, if you've got questions, ask your brother. Before I blocked her, of course, too. It's kind of crappy that I lost my best friend and my boyfriend, but on the bright side, at least it wasn't cheating and they just suck. Thank you everyone for the advice, and hopefully I find a better man with a better family. Honestly, this is one of those situations in which you would be justified to leave. Your boyfriend could have told you that she didn't like you. He could have told you he suspected she was doing it on purpose. My boyfriend would never have me at his parents' home for food if they did something like this. They wouldn't. They're lovely people and know that I can't eat certain foods. Your boyfriend has done absolutely nothing to protect you from this behavior. You can do better. So your boyfriend knew his mother didn't like you, but kept deliberately putting you in a position where your health could be impacted? Why would you stay with such a spineless mummy's boy who won't stand up for you? You can't avoid his mother forever. Kudos for having the guts to call her out though. That was brave. I know you don't want to hear this, and I'll get downvoted for this, but this is far from the last person who will judge you and dislike you based on your septum and tongue piercings. Those modifications are seen as radical and extremely unappealing by the majority, mostly people older than you. It's a choice you made, and the consequences are people judging you based on your looks. She thinks that you're a vampire and she's using garlic to repel you, with partial success. Am I the jerk for telling my pregnant sister that her husband can't sleep at my house and in turn kicking her out too? I'm 30, female. My pregnant sister, who's 34, and her husband, who's 42, planned 2 weekend trips to visit me on the West Coast, also as a pit stop to get to and from Hawaii. My sister, Jane, is pregnant, and this trip is their baby moon. Jane's husband is Charles, and my husband is Victor. Background: I don't like how Charles speaks to Jane in general. He often argues and raises his voice throughout the day about trivial things. I've talked to Jane about his behavior before, and she's told me, I realize how he sounds when he talks to people. We fight about it all the time, and I think he just needs anger management. It always ends with her apologizing or making excuses. Weekend 1. The entire time we spent with Charles was quite exhausting and miserable for me. He argued with my sister multiple times. When Victor speaks, I can see Charles rolling his eyes, nudging Jane's elbow, and whispering snide remarks to her. He seems to think these all go unnoticed by us. He usually talks down to me, cuts me off, and enjoys flaunting his knowledge. My brother, mom, and some cousins also find him a difficult person to be around. Charles and Jane leave my house, and the next day I'm overwhelmed by the stress and how uncomfortable Charles always makes me feel. Victor finds me crying and thinks they should not come back to sleep in our home because it's so stressful for me, but agrees we should still hang out with them out of our house. I cried about it because I don't want to put my sister in a difficult situation, especially with her being pregnant and trying to enjoy a vacation. I end up telling Jane how I feel. Charles is rude and disrespectful to me, you, and Victor. I still want to spend time with you while you're in town, but I need separate time to decompress after being with Charles. I love you, but this is the boundary I need to set for this dynamic to work. She cries and says if she doesn't sleep here, she will need a break from me. I apologize to her and emphasize this is about needing a break from Charles, not Jane, both during a phone call and text. Charles calls me and it goes terribly. He talks over me, tells me he's disappointed because I'm not supporting my sister's pregnancy by not allowing him to sleep at my place. Jane is bringing life into this world. Our feelings aren't what matter. Jane is what matters right now. If we don't sleep there, we won't be seeing you. Weekend 2 starts today. I haven't heard from Jane. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I do think you could have done things differently. From the way you worded it here, it does sound like you may have uninvited her. I might have said explicitly, you're welcome to stay here, but Charles is not. There's certainly no requirement, but given that this return stay was already planned, you might have considered allowing them to stay this time with some stipulations on Charles' behavior. This is a crappy situation since you obviously don't want to harm your relationship with your sister, but you shouldn't have to deal with her jerk husband either. OP. Sorry, there was a character limit, but I did tell my sister over the phone that she was welcome to stay and I just needed a break from Charles to decompress at home at the end of the day. She told me she doesn't want to sleep separately from him, which is understandable. Although there was a lot said on the phone with Charles where he basically implies, this is just who I am. Seriously, why isn't anyone calling him out on his behavior? Charles, we can see and hear you. You're being rude. I was talking, please don't interrupt me. Do not talk to me in that way, it's rude. He does this because everyone lets him. Not the jerk, but this outcome is not surprising. Very few married people would be willing to sleep apart from their spouse on vacation, especially in entirely different places. Even less when one party is nearing the end of a pregnancy. Spouses like to share accommodations, and anytime you're trying to split a married couple up in terms of sleeping arrangements, there's always a very good chance they will both decide to make alternate arrangements elsewhere so that they can stay together. You're not a jerk for setting boundaries with your sister's crappy husband, but married couples often see themselves as a unit, and they may not allow you to set boundaries with only one of them while keeping the other in your life. That's your sister's choice. She's siding with her husband. She's not going to stay where he's not welcome. She's not going to hang out with people who are on bad terms with him. And it's her right to draw her own boundary with people who do not welcome her husband, as misguided as we might think that is. Hopefully in the future she will relent, but if she holds firm, you may need to decide how much Charles you are willing to tolerate to have your sister in your life. Not the jerk. But oh look, another story of a woman who settled down with a guy who treats her like crap. I used to think that one day they would finally wake up and stop picking the jerks to be with. But then I come back to my senses and realize that will never happen. Maybe stop friend-zoning the guys who are actually kind and respectful. Crazy idea, I know. Edit. Call me a nice guy all you want. Sure, I totally wear fedoras, fingerless gloves, and spend my days playing video games in my mom's basement. There's no way in heck I own a luxury apartment and have worked in commercial banking for the last 8 years. Not everyone who has a different opinion than you Reddit freaks is some basement dweller, as you'd like to believe. My husband uses the same mop water for weeks and refuses to stop. My husband only has a few household tasks. One of them that he took on is mopping the floors. He has a bucket full of mop water, maybe 3 gallons, that he will use to mop. He puts 2 or 3 cups of pine sol in the bucket and then fills it up. When he's finished mopping, he will put the mop inside the bucket and put the bucket on the porch. He uses the water until I throw it away. The water is often black when I throw it out. He will use the same water to mop up messes. If the dog pees on the floor, he mops it up and then puts the bucket of water back on the porch. This is a major source of contention between us because I think it's incredibly gross. We've gotten into screaming arguments when he has caught me throwing out the mop water. He says the water is fine because the pine sol sterilizes it and that he worked as a janitor before, and he's insulted that I think he doesn't know how to clean the floor. I cleaned a whole school for years, and you think I don't know how to clean a regular floor? I've offered to do it myself, but he sees it as an insult to his abilities. Today I stepped into the kitchen and noticed that the entire floor felt grimy and sticky. He was sitting at the table and told me, "The dog peed, so I thought I'd just do the whole floor." I asked him if he bothered to change out the black water he's been using, and he said no. This of course started a fight. I told him that he had made the floors filthy and that I, 3 months pregnant, didn't want to expose myself to whatever diseases are growing in that water. And I would be doing all the mopping from now on with Bona because we have hardwood floors. He told me he might as well not be in the house because clearly I don't respect any of his choices. He got his keys, got in the car, and drove off. He was gone for hours, came back, and isn't talking to me. I feel like I'm going crazy. Is the pine sol actually sufficient? Am I making something huge out of nothing? How am I supposed to fix this when I feel like I've tried to and it just hasn't worked? I worked in food service for 9 years, and we had to change the mop water every single day. No exceptions. Just mopped 10 minutes ago and had a spill? Get that sanitizer water running and get a fresh mop. This is absolutely not okay. It's gross and unhealthy, and if an apathetic teenager in a crappy fast food joint can do better, then so can your husband. Nope. Eventually the bacteria takes over. Putting it outside makes it worse. Honestly, I'd toss out the bucket and mop and buy a spray mop with pads. If he goes into a tirade, then it's time to rethink this relationship. And there's going to be a baby crawling around on that nasty floor soon. All this walking on eggshells and going around him to do extra work, all to avoid triggering a tantrum? I can't imagine trying to raise a kid with this dude. He's going to make it 10 times harder for her than doing it alone. I mean, it's basically toilet water if you mop up pee and then just store it to spread it around on the floor later. This is not sanitary and you are not wrong. Why does he want to save a bucket of dirty water? Also, 2 to 3 cups of pine sol? When you have a significant other who refuses to do cleaning the right way, it's a huge red flag. It shows that they are unwilling to do what is right. It shows they are stubborn and stuck in their ways. I'm sure he's the type of guy to make excuses when you look it up on Google and show him that what he's doing is wrong. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I've always done it this way. Sorry, lady, but your husband is an absolute idiot, and I hope you find someone with a few brain cells. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my wife wake our daughter up to see a bear? My wife, my kids, who are 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4, and I just spent 3 weeks at our cabin while we got some repairs done on our house. Our 10-year-old, Rose, has leukemia. A lot of the activities around the cabin are outdoors, and Rose doesn't usually have the energy for that. So one of her favorite activities has been watching the wildlife from this big window seat in the master bedroom and taking pictures of what she sees. Her goal since she started doing this was to see a bear. There are some in the area, but it's not too common to see one. She has me take her up to the window seat after dinner and usually falls asleep watching for bears. Towards the end of the 3 weeks, I had to take her to the hospital for chemo, 3.5 hours each way. That night, she fell asleep in the window seat again, and when I got up to carry her to bed, there were 2 bears close to our cabin. I called my wife over to see, and I took a picture on Rose's iPad, but my wife wanted to wake Rose up so she could see. She hadn't gotten to see a bear this trip. I told my wife she needs to rest, and that showing her the picture would be enough, but my wife still tried to wake her up. I stopped her again and got Rose in bed. The next morning, I told Rose that there were bears last night, and I showed her the pictures. She asked if I woke her up. I said yes, because I didn't want her to get upset, but my wife told Rose that I wouldn't let anybody wake her up. We did not see any more bears for the rest of the trip, and Rose has been devastated. She refuses to speak to me and deleted the pictures I took for her because apparently it doesn't count. My wife is even talking about taking Rose back to the cabin for a week to try to see a bear. I don't think it's a big deal, but my wife and Rose are still upset with me, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. My wife takes her to the zoo at least once a week. She's there for nearly every special event, including the first day they brought the bear cubs out. Update. My wife, my father-in-law, and Rosie have been at the cabin for 4 days now. I ordered stuffed animals, window decals, art sets, a kitty telescope and binoculars, a camera, and a couple chairs for her to sit outside. My wife, father-in-law, and Rosie were able to go out a lot more than when we were there with the family, and they were even able to visit a national park in the area. Between Rosie's new gear, the trips to the national park, and staying up late bear watching every night, she saw bears on more than one occasion. She's feeling much better, and they're coming home on Monday. Well, why didn't you go with her? I have to work, and we have 4 other kids. If I would have gone with her, my wife would have had to stay home. She actually managed to see them 3 times, once at the national park and twice from her window. My wife FaceTimed me so I could see her reaction, and it was adorable. I have a few more surprises waiting for her at home. My fiance told me to choose between her and my mom. My mom turned 60 this year, and she's not going to live 5 years longer. 12 years ago, she had a stroke that left her half-side paralyzed. She still lives alone and takes care of herself completely by herself. She's very resilient, and I'm incredibly proud of her, but I know that her chances of living another 5 years are very low. My fiance got, surprisingly, a promotion in the dream job she always wanted. Saying it's a gigantic opportunity would be saying that a Ferrari is just a car. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It will change her life forever. It will fulfill everything she wanted. It will make her rich. It also involves her moving countries, thousands of kilometers away. There is no way she won't accept it, and I wouldn't want her to. The moment she told me about it, I knew it was over. She asked me to come with her. I didn't even need to think about it, and I said no. It broke me apart, and it broke her apart, and I feel nothing and simultaneously just pain. My mother has 5 years left at best, then she will pass, and just never be in my life again. For the rest of my existence until oblivion. Also, it swallows me up. I will just never get to meet her again, hear her living voice again. She will be gone forever, just gone. The clock is ticking for her every day a bit louder, and I cannot, simply cannot move away from her and see her only once a year anymore. How could I accept that only seeing her 5 times before she stops existing? I cannot. Period. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it wasn't a hard choice at all. I hope your fiancé truly gets why you made this choice. Not that it makes it easier, but it's better that way for sure. Is there any way you can do long distance for a few years? At least try it. Why not take your mom with you? Let her see some more of the world before she goes. Today I learned that reservations are old school. I'm a night auditor in a college town and it's move-in week. That means we've been at 100% all week and are set to be over the weekend as well. 90% of the hotels are families moving their college kids in. The other 10% are regulars or business travelers smart enough to book way ahead. 2 gentlemen walk in at around 2:30 a.m. The first gentleman asks for a 2-bed room and asks how much it will cost. I ask if he has a reservation and he goes, "No, I didn't know I needed one." I apologized for the inconvenience and told him we're fully booked. He dejectedly moves away from the desk and the other gentleman behind him comes up, who had 2 reservations he made 3 months prior. As I check that gentleman in, the first guy's wife comes in. I can overhear them arguing. She's asking him why he didn't insist, and he tells her, she said they're fully booked, whatever that means. She rolls her eyes at him. When the guest leaves, she comes to the desk. Hey, we need a room. I tell her we're sold out tonight. Sorry, unless you have a standing reservation, I can't help you. Reservations? You guys still do those? That's old school. I must have made a face because she looks instantly offended. You seriously can't be telling me that we need make reservations still? Can't I just check into a room? I need to go online and jump through hoops first? I reiterate, all of our rooms are sold and occupied. Walk-ins aren't unusual, no. But again, there are no vacancies. She wouldn't be able to make a reservation online because there is no space to put her. Ugh, why is it so busy? She asks. I tell her it's move-in week for the local college. She goes, that's what we're here for. I'm moving my son in. And she looks surprised. Wow, you don't say. Then she says, well, why did that other guy get 2 rooms? He walked in after us. I had to explain to her that he had reserved those rooms 3 months ago. That's not fair. We were here first. There should be a system for calling ahead and having you hold a room for us, because this is ridiculous. Karen stops me mid-workout and demands to use the squat rack. This is becoming more and more common at the surrounding gyms, which is really annoying and a reason I've changed gyms more than once this year alone. Working out is a pillar of my everyday life, and it has been for the past 10 years, and I'm at the gym every day of the week. Now, I don't go to the gym to talk to people, make friends, or make funny videos. I go to train and go home. However, now with the new video trends, many folks want to record their exercises to post on social media. This is their business and not mine. They can do whatever they want, but I also don't think I need to stop doing my own workout to accommodate them. Last night I was doing squats on the Smith machine. I work out with headphones and I didn't notice that someone was trying to get my attention. I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder mid-squat, and only then I noticed a woman with a very annoyed expression. She barely allowed me to finish the movement to start talking, which was muffled due to headphones. Long story short, she was annoyed because I was training on the Smith machine and she wanted to record herself doing regular squats. However, she said the best spot was in front of that Smith machine. There's more than one, and she didn't want me on the frame. So she wanted me to stop my series for her to record. Now, usually if someone comes to me with a good attitude and asks if it's okay for me to stop for a series or two for them to record or even move machines, I would absolutely not mind and comply. This lady did nothing of the sort, being extremely arrogant and honestly extremely annoying. So I was petty and I told her to record once I was done, and I proceeded to do every single exercise I could on the same Smith machine. Squats, Smith. Hip thrust, Smith. It was petty and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I felt very vindicated seeing her annoying expression. That being said, a few people said I was a jerk for doing that, as there were other machines I could have used. Honestly, they might be right, but hey, I thought I'd ask the internet. Was I too much of a jerk here? Not the jerk. First off, who interrupts someone mid-squat? A lot of gyms have a no recording policy where I live. In my last gym, these people just got reported to the fitness manager. Not the jerk. For all those people trying to film themselves in a public place, get over yourselves. We don't care about your 1,327 followers seeing your gains. Stop disrupting public space with your ego. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have gone ahead and moved for her or not? Please let us know. I would have started coughing all over her. It's one of the quickest ways to get people to stop messing with you, especially these days. Boss did me wrong, so I put him out of business. This happened 12 years ago, and I'm still reaping my rewards. I worked for the company. They did 3-phase photography of families and their kids. No wedding events or anything like that. Straight studio work that was in a portable setting. Sittings booked for 10 minutes, and we were supposed to shoot 30 to 50 a day. Yes, it is as wretched of a job as it sounds. It was fast, high energy, and at times simply brutal. 1. Pre-seller. They come in 2 to 3 weeks in advance and sell a special 10 by 13 portrait and book the appointment. 2. The photographer. That's me in this instance. Comes in for about a week and takes the pictures. 3. The salesperson returns 2 weeks later with the special along with the other 6 poses I took and tries to sell you $400 worth of pictures. I was very good at what I did. The company sales average was $100 per customer per 50 customers. The more you shoot, the lower your quality, because you spend less time taking care of details. and details sell pictures. My average was 175-ish per 150 to 200 customers. I was making this company a lot of money, and they consistently treated me like crap. Oh, the stories. Their business model was shoot as many sittings as you can, as fast as you can. To them, shooting 50 with a $100 average was better than shooting 35 with a $150 average, even though the profit margin was exactly the same. I never agreed with that, and boss and I went around and around about it every week. They withheld raises because I didn't have enough sittings and took my bonuses because I wasn't meeting their quotas. So I figured out how to be fast, efficient, and darn good. That's another post. So that's the background. Now the good stuff. Enter the jerk. The jerk is a pre-seller who lied to the customers, lied to the store, and would book appointments from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. even though the studio hours were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. He told every lie in the book, and I think he even added a few of his own. Want to bring your dog? Family of 15? Sure. Bring 5 change of clothes and we'll even have her do your makeup. I don't even do my own makeup. Come and get your picture taken and we will throw in a free toaster. And just to make it interesting, he would triple and quadruple book appointments, and when he ran out of those, he would sell open appointments and tell people to just come in anytime and my photographer will work with you. Ugh, just writing that makes me mad even after all these years. The biggest problem is he would waive the sitting fee or just not tell them. I was obligated to collect that $8. Every time I didn't, it came out of my check. It was a nightmare. I refused to work behind the jerk for these and 1,000 other reasons. I told boss that if they ever put me behind the jerk again, I would quit, which is exactly what happened. They knew he had been working at the store I was assigned, and they lied about it. I immediately called boss and told him this was my last week and that he needed to make arrangements to get the photography equipment at the end of the shoot. I should have walked out, but I was young and dumb. It was a 3-day shoot, and I did 316 customers by myself. That is an insane amount of sittings, and nobody was happy. Every night, the store manager had to tell my customers to leave because the store was closed. People were lined up at 9 a.m. waiting for me. I took so much mistreatment that week. After a customer threw a shoe at me and another spit on my pizza, the store security guard brought a chair over and stayed with me almost the entire time I was there. I honestly cannot remember how many people were escorted out of the store because they acted a fool in my studio. It's been over a decade, and I still have nightmares about that week. But nobody came to get the equipment, so I start making phone calls and plotting. Me. Hey, what do you want me to do with your equipment? Boss. You're going to need it next week in Florida. Me. No, because I quit. Boss. You didn't give me any notice, so I'm not accepting your resignation. I'm sending you to Florida next week. Me. I'm an independent contractor, remember? You can't make me go to Florida. This is not complicated. I quit. Boss. Just go to Florida. I don't have time for this now. You can quit in 3 weeks if you can hire a replacement. And he hangs up. Nope, not going to Florida. I packed the equipment and took it home with me. The camera was a brand new Canon T2i 550D, and those were pricey back in 2010. I really didn't want to give it back, but it wasn't mine to keep. I had an idea. Boss was an absolute train wreck of a human. If he didn't want to do something, he wouldn't. If he could find someone else to do it, he would. I decided to use his own worst traits against him: avoidance and procrastination. The next thing I did was take the company credit card and go to the nearest storage unit with climate control. I rented a unit and paid for the first month, but just one. I unloaded it all, down to the last halogen light bulb. I took detailed pictures of everything and an inventory. I locked the door and walked away. At this point, there was nothing I could do but wait and hope boss would continue to be the worthless wreck I knew him to be. Next, I called and reported the card stolen. Why? Because I knew if I didn't, that card would remain active and rent would be paid every month on time, and that just wasn't going to work for me. I cut it in half and sent it and the combination to the storage locker to boss via FedEx, along with a hand-painted sign that said, "I quit." I also sent an email to HR telling them that I was terminating my contract and that boss had the information and the equipment. This is probably the only sketchy thing I did. The person I emailed was out on medical leave and I knew it. I could have sent that email to a dozen other people who worked there, but they might have paid attention to it. By the time she got back to the office, she had so many emails she couldn't even begin to tackle them all. A month goes by and the police knock on my door. Okay, so I wasn't expecting that. The company has reported the equipment stolen and the police are there to investigate. I really thought I was going to jail. The cop that knocked on the door was fully expecting to take me away in handcuffs until I explained what was going on. I ended up taking copies of the emails to the police department as well as my copy of the contract with the storage unit. I also had a copy of the shipping label. Both my name and the company were listed on the contract. I had to make an official statement and jump through some hoops. The company had placed a monetary value of $12,000 on the studio rig, so potentially I was in a lot of trouble. Except I covered myself. The police told me I was in the clear because the storage unit had their name on the contract, their credit card was used to pay for it, and I had sent the combination and all the pertinent information to the company. I am very good at cover yourself with paper. At this point, I figure the gig is up because surely they're going to come to get this rig or send someone or something. Nope, boss is still worthless. 2 more months go by. I get a call from the storage facility. They're about to cut the lock and auction the contents. I was so excited. I called boss again. He dodged my calls and ignored my emails to please call me immediately. I never specifically stated what I wanted to talk to him about, and just like I was hoping he would, he ignored me. Okie dokie. I have done all that I can. And that's when it all started to come together. And then I hit a pretty good snag, but it actually worked out better in the end. In this state, if a storage unit goes up for sale, the owner cannot purchase it at auction. I didn't know that. But where there is a will, there is a way. They sent letters and called 3 more times, and then the date was set. The unit went up for auction on my birthday. My neighbor went to the sale. He bought the unit for $125. I couldn't believe it. And of course, we were in cahoots on this, but we had to make it look like we weren't. The grip on the camera mounts cost more than that, not to mention the lighting, props, and costumes, and of course, the camera. My neighbor then put an ad in the local newspaper for photography stuff, $1,000 firm, but didn't list anything specific, and oops, put the wrong number in the ad. A week later, he wanted it out of his garage, so he sold it to me for $126. He has a bill of sale from the auction. I have a bill of sale from him. It's now mine, and there's nothing the company can do about it. But they tried. I now have a fully functional photography studio, all the contacts I need to start my own business, and the skills to do it. I started calling all the stores I had worked for the last 8 years and offered them a much better deal than what the company was giving them. I did my own pre-selling, my own photography, and my own sales, except I took it a step farther. I bought a monitor and computer and let people preview their pictures and order the day of the shoot. They paid in full and I mailed the pictures directly to them. People loved it. No high-pressure sales, no tricks. My customers were happy and so were my stores. About 6 months after my first independent shoot, I hear from the company. I got several nasty letters from them, which I ignored. Word had gotten back to them that I was using their equipment and that I was working for someone else. I just laughed at them. They thought so little of me that it never occurred to them that it was my business. Then I got a nasty legal letter from a lawyer. It started with cease and desist, rolled into me violating the non-competitors agreement, and ended with the return of their stolen property. They had apparently not told him all of the facts. I sent him copies of everything. I waited a few weeks for a response from him and heard nothing. I finally called to find out what was going on, but no one was available to take my call. How convenient. A few days later, I got a certified letter in the mail saying, "No other legal action will be forthcoming from this office." I would have been content to just let it slide, but this whole thing ticked me off, and now I wanted revenge. I made a real effort to really get them. Little by little, I built my business and my reputation. I didn't have to do any of the nasty tricks that the jerk did. Within a year, I had stores and schools calling me. I had more work than I could handle on my own, so I took on a second photographer, and a third. I actually hired 4 people out from under their noses. At the height of my business, I had 8 additional photographers and a full-time office assistant. I could have grown much larger, and in hindsight, I'm so glad I didn't. Digital photography was a huge boom to the industry, and then it backfired. I found my niche in the market just as it exploded. I ran the company completely out of 3 states. They lost all of their chain contracts to me, including the store where it all started. The jerk lost all of his stores and ended up working at a gas station. The boss ended up demoted because his district was dissolved when I sniped the contracts. The jerk actually tried to convince one of my photographers to hire him to do the pre-selling for her. By now, my name and my business name had a really good reputation. Boss left the company for good and used me as a personal reference. He was a good photographer, just a rotten manager, and I took great joy in telling the people who called me that I was legally not allowed to tell them what I thought of the man. The age of the cell phone camera pretty much destroyed traditional photography, and I closed my doors as a business in late 2017. The company closed for good in 2016, and I would like to think I had a hand in that. I'm still standing, and they are nothing but an empty building. I still have the original rig, but the camera has been replaced several times. I do senior pictures and the occasional venue shoot. Most of my photography is for restaurant menus now. People ask me if that's boring. I've never had a meatball scream, cry, or kick me, which is pretty much a daily occurrence when you work with kids. This may not be as epic as some on here, but I beat them at their own game, and that still feels pretty darn good. My Karen sister loses it when I tell her I don't want kids, I want money. My sister has a 5-month-old baby. Her and her boyfriend are not struggling financially, but their standard of living has very much decreased since giving birth. They can afford the necessities, but they can't go on vacation, can't go out to eat, and can't afford a babysitter. They also just moved into a cheaper apartment. My mom has been asking my sister and the baby to move in with her so that they can save money. My sister said no. For more context, my sister's boyfriend makes a little less than minimum wage. He only works part-time at a restaurant to focus on creating his music. When my sister announced they were trying for a baby, my mom was really worried, and she's still worried, about their financial situation. My sister is the primary income source for their household, and my mom has been giving them some money every month. I make a little more than my sister, but I don't have kids. So last night, all of us came together for dinner. My sister kept asking me when I'm going to have kids, and I said I don't plan on having any. She said I'll change my mind. I'm almost 30. I said I probably won't, and she kept pressing me on why. I finally just said, I don't want kids, I want money. And she got really quiet. When dinner was over, she left a voicemail to my mom crying about how I attacked her, and my mom is now mad at me. My mom wants me to apologize to my sister. To be clear, I do think my sister is in a nightmare situation, but I would have said I wanted money even if she didn't have a baby. I've always thought I'm not meant for parenthood, and I'd rather just be the cool, fun aunt that travels a lot and buys big presents for my nieces and nephews. I didn't mean to insult her, and I've never once commented on her financials or relationship because it's not my place. Am I the jerk, and should I apologize? Not the jerk. This is one of those things where context matters. If you were sitting at dinner and just randomly blurted out, I don't want kids, I want money, that would be a jerk thing to say to your sister. But when she starts asking when you're gonna have kids, and especially when she refused to drop it, she's asking for a response like this. She asked and you answered. She doesn't like your answer. That's on her for pressing you for one in the first place. You didn't attack her. You upset her by being honest, and that's not your fault. Not the jerk, and I don't think you owe her an apology, but a conversation is a good idea. It sounds like she's actually pretty upset herself about her finances, and your response touched a nerve. Maybe start with something like, hey, it wasn't my intention to offend you in any way, and I'm honestly confused as to why this upset you so much. I gave you my honest answer after being pressured, and I can't help feeling like maybe this is really about something else. Am I the jerk for belittling my sister and saying she shouldn't demand her husband help with their baby at night? My husband and I went through surrogacy options and had our son 4 months ago. We were thrilled when my sister, who's 31, announced her pregnancy, and we found out that we would be having kids very near the same time. Our niece was born a little over 2 months after our son. My situation and my sister's closely mirror each other. Our husbands both work typical 9-to-5s with 30 to 45-minute commutes. My sister is a stay-at-home mom, and I do freelance work from home. For the first 2 weeks after our son was born, the first of which my husband took off of work, we would both take partial night shifts. Once I felt like I had at least some of my bearings on parenthood, I offered to take over completely on weeknights while he does mornings before work plus weekends. It's a collaborative process, and that breakdown of parenting just made sense to me. My husband was the one leaving our home to work every day. He was the one who had to be up by a specific time and make a drive. At 4 months, we no longer have this obstacle anymore. And to be honest, I kind of miss the sweet, quiet bonding time those extra night feeds provided now that he's settled onto a nice sleep schedule and usually only wakes up once. Still, I think we got it down to almost the perfect science before we exited the newborn stage. My sister, on the other hand, is very much still in that phase and struggling. This has been a recurring problem for her from the beginning. She has been coming to me saying she's scared she's going to fall asleep holding the baby, that her husband won't help her with the night feeds, etc. I tried to give her tips since I've been through it. I suggested she let her partner take over in the evenings, 6 to 9 p.m., so she can go to bed early and catch a few more hours, nap when the baby naps, etc. She shot down everything, saying that wouldn't work for them, and that she just needed her partner to do some of the night feedings. I reminded her that her husband is the one commuting in the mornings and falling asleep while driving was a very real possibility, and that I had lived through it and so could she. I then offered to watch her daughter for a few days so she could catch up on sleep. She took major offense to both of these things. She said I was belittling her experience and acting like I was a better parent. She said I couldn't truly empathize with her or give her valuable tips since she had been pregnant and I hadn't, and that me offering to watch my niece just felt like me saying she needed help raising her own daughter. My intentions were definitely not malicious, and I'd like some outside perspective here. Am I the jerk? Update. I have apologized because I was definitely the jerk for those comments, even if I didn't intend to be. My sister accepted said apology, and hopefully moving forward, I can truly be the listening ear she needed and not someone who offers solutions that weren't asked for, especially when our circumstances aren't that similar. My husband has clearly been taking on many more parenting duties than hers, and she and my niece both deserve better than that. Full offense. Yes, you're the jerk. Your situations do not closely mirror each other. Her experience has been very different, especially considering her body is still recovering from pregnancy and giving birth, which is painful and completely exhausting. Did she have a C-section or natural birth? Did she have a tear, stitches? These details matter. She could also be struggling with PPD, something you do not have to worry about. I don't say this to belittle you. I say this because you're belittling her. You're turning this into a competition, and it's clear you do think you're the better mother. How arrogant. It's normal to expect your husband to help with night feedings. Just because you have not needed that help, likely because you didn't give birth and have absolutely no idea what that's like, does not mean you get to pass judgment on your sister for having different needs. Every baby is different, even siblings with the same parents can be entirely different. If you actually want to help her, stop comparing yourselves and stop acting like she's doing something wrong. Her baby and her schedule are her life and not yours, and they are not like yours. Stop that. Be supportive and kind. Be a good sister. My husband made our nanny quit. I, 29 female, am married to my husband, who's 34, and we have a nanny who's 21. We hired our nanny over a year ago when I was pregnant with our daughter, while I had a toddler who was 2 at the time, who's now 4, and I couldn't do much work, and my husband couldn't be with me all the time due to his work. She's amazing with our girls. She has helped me so much during the last few months of my pregnancy and especially postpartum. None of my friends are pregnant yet, so they couldn't always help me, and I don't have mom, nor am I close with my mother-in-law. I didn't have anyone to confide in like that. Our nanny has so much experience and was so amazing to me. She made me amazing soups and stews from her culture that were made to help pregnant women. It was amazing. She would make my toddler have quiet time, which was even more amazing. She's always on time, she's very clean, an amazing cook, really fun with the girls, and a good teacher as well. Our nanny and my husband only met once, and that was during our Zoom meeting, and they have never met after that. Since she gets here after my husband leaves and leaves before he comes back, they've never crossed paths before. 3 weeks ago, me and husband got really sick, so my husband stayed home from work. Due to how sick I was, I forgot to relay this information to our nanny. Our baby has been extremely clingy the past few months and will cry if left alone. I usually bring her in the bathroom with me, but the bathroom downstairs is much smaller, so our nanny can't do that as comfortably. She decided to just start using the bathroom with the door cracked open and would give our baby a toy outside so she's not tempted to come in but can still see her. I'm aware of this and I'm fine with it since it's only us girls at home. While my husband was home, unbeknownst to her, she went to use the bathroom with the door open and my husband saw her. She completely freaked out and apologized profusely. I had no issue and apologized to her that I forgot to let her know my husband was home. Everything was fine, but I sensed she was extremely uncomfortable, which I kept apologizing for. The next few days, my husband started going to work late and coming home early, to which there would be more interactions between him and the nanny. When I hired our nanny, one of the things she told me was that she wasn't comfortable with adult men in the house, which was not a problem since our arrangement didn't allow it. When he would see her, he kept trying to make personal conversations with our nanny redirected to our girls. Last week, she spoke with me and reminded me of the agreement we had, which was no adult men in the house and that she was uncomfortable. I completely understood where she was coming from. I spoke with my husband and he apologized to her and me. The next day he went to work normal, then 2 days later he told me he had to work from home since his office is getting worked on. We talked to our nanny and my husband told us that he would stay upstairs the whole time, which worked for the rest of the week. Monday, he accidentally forgot his coffee and went to get it while our nanny was there. He was asking her personal questions. He asked her how her weekend was, which she responded, good, and then he had the nerve to ask her if she saw her boyfriend. She responded no and that she didn't have one. He went on to ask her what type of men she was into. I was downstairs quickly to stop it. I apologized to our nanny. When we got upstairs, I yelled at him for talking to her like that and reminded him what he agreed to and that he was to stay away from her. I noticed he was monitoring the nanny cam a lot and he told me that he was just checking in on the girls. Yesterday, I had a really bad stomach ache because I'm lactose intolerant and my husband accidentally put whole milk in both of our coffees. I asked him to go in the day with the nanny and lock up the door after that. Unbeknownst to me, he started asking her what type of men she was into and was telling her how he's dated black women before and is into them. Our nanny is black and I'm not. He also jokingly grabbed her shoulders to pick her up and move her aside to get to the fridge. Why didn't he just say excuse me is beyond me right now. Last night, our nanny tried calling me, but I was sleeping because I took some medicine for my stomach. I woke up today to see a text from her that she was quitting because she didn't feel comfortable coming to the house anymore. I texted and called her and she hasn't picked up. I'm beyond angry at my husband and I took some time to calm down, but really I can't. I don't think I can replace her and truly I don't want to. I don't want to start this all over again. We know each other so well. We have inside jokes. We have memories that I can't recreate. She is someone I have felt comfortable enough to confide in with everything. She's been with me throughout special moments with the kids and even for me. I'm not upset with her at all and completely understand why she's shaken up by all of this, so I've accepted giving her some space. I just really wasn't prepared for this. Edit. First, for people saying our nanny is wrong because my husband lives here and should be comfortable. She came highly recommended from a woman from our church and we wanted her. She gave us her requirements and one of them was that she's uncomfortable working with adult men in the house. We agreed, including my husband. Whenever he has finished work early, he stops by somewhere else to work or hang out until Nanny leaves. Nanny isn't mentally ill for not wanting men in the house. She's explained to me that she's had issues with husbands making weird advances or sometimes wives accusing her of things, so to avoid problems, she just doesn't want them in the house. Second, I still have a nanny because I'm now trying to work. Third, I do not like my husband, nor do I condone his behavior. We have had issues since he became useless to our family. My needs weren't grave when I was pregnant. I just needed certain foods, medicine, and help with showers, but he wouldn't help with anything, and this was with our first kid. And the second one, we got a nanny. I've thought about divorce, but I kind of need his money. If it was just me, I would have divorced him already, but I have kids, so I'm aware of what he was trying to do. I have talked to and scolded him. Fourth, I usually make our coffees, but he made them yesterday because baby kept me up all night and he was home. I put the drink in glass containers with labels that it would be easy to mix up. It also tasted the same. Update. I didn't marry my husband for the money. We dated when I was in college and then he proposed. We loved each other a lot and everything was great in our marriage. When I got pregnant with our first, it was good. He was helpful. Then somewhere along the line, he just started becoming distant. I always handled everything in the house since I didn't work, but even in the third trimester, he refused to help and would always say he's tired, but would play basketball outside or video games. He started working later and it caused some problems. We got couples counseling and it fixed some things and we were pretty good. Hence the second kid happened. The second pregnancy was really bad. I mean, at my first trimester, I was in and out of the hospital, and when at home, walking or standing was really hard, so I would need help getting to the shower, and things like that, or my medication, which he didn't help with and avoided me. So there would be days where our daughter would only eat leftover snacks from our room because I couldn't move. If you asked him where the cleaning supplies are in the house, he wouldn't know because he's never cleaned it before. And he would buy food on the way home and eat, and then when he'd get home, he'd say that he forgot and offer to go get some, knowing that where we live, it would have to be a 20-minute drive, and by the time he'll get home, the baby would already be sleeping. People who said our nanny was being prioritized over my husband is ridiculous. My husband isn't trapped in the house, and we didn't move our lives around the nanny. The hours she's here is when my husband is at work. He chose to avoid seeing her, and that's why if he finished early, he wouldn't come home. What a jerk your husband is. Oh Lord, reading this was pretty infuriating. What a massive jerk your husband is. OP divorcing is really the best solution at this point. Also, why is the sitter getting trashed by some of the commenters? She's completely innocent. I broke up with my fiance, and he says he'll call the police if I take our cat with me when I move. Me and my ex found a kitten in the backyard back in June. I've been paying for all of her food, litter, toys, and carrier, and I'll be paying for the vet appointments too in a week, for the entire time that we've had her. I have proof and store receipts of me paying for all of her things. He hasn't paid a single cent for her. He never has money and has had 3 different jobs since we moved in together in March. I'm leaving him, and he says I can't take her with me. He does not clean her litter box or feed her, and I have video proof. He also trashes the room and never cleans it, and I have video proof. If I left her with him, she would be alone all day for 5 days a week. For the 2 days that he is home, all he does is play video games all day. He says if I bring the cat with me when I move, he will call the police. What can I do? Update. So on my last post, a lot of people mentioned that I should make sure I wouldn't be responsible for the lease when I move, and maybe I should have explained the situation more. Me and my ex rented a room in a house. We have a live-in landlord who is pretty lax and another roommate. He's very understanding, and I would not have been responsible for the lease after moving out, even if my ex did not pay. I also remember someone else asking how it was possible that I have proof of him not doing things. I basically had blog videos of the days and the timestamps of the litter box not being cleaned and me cleaning them up, and text messages and videos of me having conversations with him about how I'm the only one taking care of her, and him admitting it on camera and then in text. That was the proof that I had. Today, my ex moved out. When I made my last post, he said he was going to stay and pay rent without me, but before the month was up, he decided to move back in with his parents. Today, his whole family came to the house to take his things into a U-Haul. His father came at me, going off at me, which I have video of, and his mother came into the room and took my cat's cat tree that the landlord gifted to me. That's fine, because I've already ordered the exact same one and it's gonna get here in a few days. They're insane people, and I'm so glad to have them out of my life. The cat is with me. I took her to the vet the other day and got her vaccinations and got her chipped and registered in my name, and when my ex found out, he was very mad, but he would not have been able to afford $581 anyway. My ex also said that he was going to take all of my things back that he bought for me when we first started dating, like my Xbox and my TV and my headset, but I flat out refused, and I told him that I legally do not have to give those things back, and he did not try to fight me on those because he already has his own Xbox and TV. So that's the update. I have my cat and I have all my things, and he's out of my life for good until I have to take him to court to fix the whole front bumper and hood of my car for crashing into a dining room table chair on a highway when I let him drive my car home from work. That's a whole nother story. Am I the jerk for demanding that my husband pays half of the takeaway food we order? My husband, 40 male, and I, 35 female, have very different jobs. Basically, I make double than what he does, and he argues that I should pay for takeaway food, especially because I'm the wife and I should be the one to cook. Therefore, if I cannot cook, then I should make up for it by paying for takeaway, since he already shares the split bill for food, groceries, and rent. To give you a little bit of context, I've just taken on a new role at the start of this month as a head of a department with 6 new members of staff and a lot of loose ends to tie from previous leadership. We both wake up at 4:30 a.m., and while he gets home at around 3:30 p.m., I find myself arriving around 5:30 p.m. on a light day. His job involves food processing, and while it is a labor process, when he leaves his workplace, that's the end of the day for him, whereas I come home and continue working from home, including weekends, until around 9 p.m., when I just pass out as I'm too tired. For him, home time means 90% being on his phone or laptop, watching videos and playing games, making coffee and smoking cigarettes. I'm not going to lie and say he never helps. He does clean the bathroom and hoovers occasionally, once a month, and does the dishes, not without complaining though. Now it has come to a point where a few months ago, while he had one too many drinks, he told everyone at the table that he was investing all of his money into my backside. This is when I started downloading every single receipt for grocery, phone bills, rent, Uber drives, takeaway, holiday accommodations, everything. all paid for by me. His argument is that some of those trips were things that I wanted to do or see, which is why I never reproached anything to him. However, the fishing trips that he wanted so much also came out of my own pocket, and I never asked him a dime for it. Last month, as we were mostly on holiday, he only contributed worth around $200 towards monthly expenses with food, rent, bills, which again, I did not complain about, as I knew that he wasn't paid for most of that month. But now, once he's working, he's refusing to give me anything that is beyond rent, bills, and groceries, stating that I'm the woman of the house and it's my job to do the cooking. I told him that I am spread thin these days until everything is more streamlined with everything at work, and that maybe he could cook every now and then or heat some ready-made food, microwave or oven. But he asked me what was the point of him getting married if he was going to do the cooking himself. So, am I the jerk for wanting the bills to be shared equally if both of us are eating? Also, not one single time when I asked him about ordering did he mention the fact that I would have to pay for all of it. In certain instances, he was even the one asking me to order food. Edit. For those wondering why we have separate finances, it's because whenever he had access to money, he just spent it on all sorts of fishing gear. Also, for those wondering why I'm still with him or what I get out of this marriage, it's simple. I love him. I suggested counseling, but he laughed in my face, saying I'm crazy and he doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do when he already knows what he wants. I will suggest the 1/3 to 2/3 split for all shared bills though. Not sure what to do about holidays and other expenses. I feel that he will still expect me to pay for those, so we'll need to sit down and have a long conversation about expectations. Not the jerk, but why did you marry him? I would separate finances immediately. Don't pay for anything for him anymore. If you order food, order only for yourself. He can find out himself how to get food. If someone ever would tell me that they are investing all their money into my backside, honestly, I'd be gone. Especially if I make more money than them, but also if I'm earning less. It would be too disrespectful in my eyes. Am I the jerk for saying I won't pick up my niece from school anymore if my brother and sister-in-law keep acting like this? Both of my brothers rely heavily on our family. Me, 24 female, my mom and my dad, for childcare, due to passings on the other sides of their family, etc. None of us mind. We all adore their kids and love spending time with them, but you give them an inch and they take a mile. They asked for an extra day a week. My parents said they were sorry, but they didn't think they could handle it, so they started on the, but we can't afford childcare. It's such a shame our kids might have to do without things they like because we have to spend more on childcare. Bear in mind, one family brings in $130,000 a year. The other brings in around $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Childcare is expensive, sure, but they're also both very financially comfortable. I'm picking up my niece, from the family earning $130,000 plus, from school for a couple days because their other childcare plans fell through and they're unable to. I don't mind, I adore her, but she's definitely a lot of work. I don't have my own kids, so after a few hours, I'm tired. It gets to be a lot, and I definitely enjoy my peace when she's gone. They're now dropping hints to me that they're exhausted. They don't enjoy the school run in the mornings, and essentially, they're trying to get me to agree to having her sleep over tomorrow night and again on Tuesday night, which is a ton more work. It means I have to be up a good hour earlier for work, and I'll be late to work due to having to drop her off at school, which is 20 minutes in the opposite direction to my office. I told them if they didn't stop, they would have to figure out alternative arrangements for the school run. They're fuming, saying I would eventually leave my niece confused, upset, and alone at school because I can't be bothered to pick her up. Obviously, I would never leave my niece on her own at school, but to be honest, I don't enjoy it when she stays over. She takes a lot of energy, and I enjoy my own routine and time in the evenings. I know if I ever have kids that'll change, but for now I don't have kids and I don't want them. I feel like they just take and take and take. They never pay for after-school clubs or breakfast clubs. If they want a night away, they always expect free babysitting from me. I've watched one of my nieces before, needed a lift afterwards, and my sister-in-law just called a taxi for me and expected me to pay for it. They always say they owe me one, but what can they owe me? When I babysit at their houses, I take my own dinner and snacks. The most I have is water. I never get paid, I don't have my own kids, and even if I did, they'd be too tired to babysit, no doubt. I just feel a bit annoyed that they expect so much from me when I'm 24 and trying to live my own life. Not the jerk. Their whole argument is that childcare is expensive, but they want you to pick up childcare responsibilities that you aren't comfortable with for free. You already have a job and you're helping out where you can. If they want you to babysit as well as do the school run, ask to be compensated for it. Likelihood is, dependent on audacity, that they'll probably stop asking and just be grateful for the school run help. Paid for babysitting isn't as attractive as free family-owing family babysitting. My stepdaughter demands I raise her baby. I, 38 female, married my husband Sam, who's 47, 5 years ago. Sam always knew that I didn't want to have kids of my own. He was fine with it. He has a daughter, Leia, who's 25. His wife passed when Leia was only 10, and I met him when she was 15. I didn't meet her until a year after I started dating him. She was a sweet young adult, and we got along great. I did not move in with Sam until Leia left for college, though. Leia got pregnant last year. Her boyfriend did not want her to keep it, but she wanted to keep it anyway. He broke up with her, and Leia moved back in with us because she couldn't afford her lifestyle without him. She worked as a teacher, and he was the breadwinner. I had concerns about how she was going to raise a kid on a teacher's salary by herself. I suggested getting him to pay child support. She didn't want to, though. Sam thought I should stay out of it. Fine. But once she had the baby about 4 months ago, Leia seemed to realize having a baby is not the sunshine and rainbow she thought it was. She barely got any sleep during the last 4 months. All the while, Sam was helping her with the baby while I did almost all of the chores by myself. Now her leave is ending. She does not want to leave the baby at daycare or with a nanny. Sam and I both work as well. She asked if I could stay home with the baby, and I said no. First, it's not my baby, and I never wanted to raise one. Second, I have work. She asked Sam, who asked me to do it instead. I refused, stating the reasons again. Sam couldn't stay home because he earned more than me and covered more bills. I asked why Leia can't stay home with the baby herself. She said that she's young and she wants to build her career. I said many people take breaks to raise their kids, and she broke down crying about how she was so tired all the time being a mom and she needed something else in her life too. Sam feels bad for her and thinks we should help her. I suggested she pay for a nanny with her income, but Leia doesn't want strangers looking after her baby. Both of them are pressuring me to stay home with baby so she can go to work. I'm standing firm on my decision. Leia said yesterday how she wished her mom was still alive since she would have had her back. She said I don't love her and my husband is also mad at me. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my stepdaughter with her baby? Maybe necessary info. Leia's mom was a stay-at-home mom. Not the jerk. She didn't ask you to help. She asked you to pretty much give up your career and raise your step-grandkid. Help would have been if she had said, "Can you see about maybe watching the baby when my school has evening staff meetings?" Or, "Can you and dad work something out on your schedules so the baby spends as little time in daycare?" Many daycare centers also give discounts to teachers because they know how hard they work and how little they get paid. Also, once she knew she was going to keep the baby, that was when she should have started asking her coworkers and friends for childcare recommendations. Explain to her that you are not refusing to help with your granddaughter, but that you need to focus on your career as well, and that you will help her come up with a plan. She needs to find reliable childcare for when she's teaching during the day, and I'm sure someone at the school can help her find that. She needs to get child support from her ex to help pay the costs. It's his kid too, and he can pay child support without having visitation rights. You and your husband should sit down with her and figure out a good childcare option for when she's working. I can 100% guarantee you that her late mother would also agree with this. Also, don't take to heart what she's saying. Postpartum depression can be very difficult to cope with, and I promise she still likes you and is just dealing with a lot right now. Well, what do you think? Should OP quit her job so she can raise her stepdaughter's baby or not? Please let us know. No way, Jose. I'd divorce that guy too. I'm not some sort of live-in babysitter and you're not gonna try to make me one. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's a disappointment? I have 2 daughters who are 23 and 20. They're both so beautiful and smart, and I really love them both. I always wanted them to be strong and independent women who would stand on their own feet, and I try to raise them that way. They were both interested in volleyball. I always supported their interest. My younger is still playing on a team and also studying at a good university. She's really hardworking, and even if she does not succeed in playing professional volleyball, she will definitely have a good job. My older daughter quit both sports and school when she got pregnant at 18. When she first told us that she was pregnant, I was very upset and advised her to not have it because having a baby at such a young age would disrupt her life. She decided to keep it, and my wife supported this decision. To be honest, I was very insistent on her not having it at the time, but when I saw that she remained determined, I dropped the issue and supported her fully, even though I didn't want to. She got married quickly with the baby's father. Then she decided to stay at home and take care of her kid, and her husband started to work. I never wanted my daughter to be financially dependent on her husband, but I never voiced it either. But of course, my daughter knew that I'm bothered by this. Yesterday, we were having dinner with my daughters and my wife. My wife and daughter started talking about being a mother. My wife told her that even though I wanted her to not have it, I love my grandson very much now. My daughter asked me if that was so, and I said, of course I love him. I really love my grandson, but my daughter knew that I was bothered by her situation, so it didn't sound sincere at all. My daughter said I could give an honest answer. I told her that I really do love my grandson, but that I was disappointed that she had become a mother at an early age, had left school and her job, and was now dependent on a man. She didn't argue with me, but the rest of the night was a bit tense. At the end of the night, she went home, and my wife started a fight over what I said. I told her that she was the one who wanted an honest answer, but my wife is sure that I'm a jerk. My younger one agrees with me, but says I was rude to say it out loud. Edit. I'm not sorry that my daughter doesn't live the life I want. I'm sorry that she lives dependent on another person, and I can't say that their marriage is going very well. They chose the sport they wanted to be interested in, the university they wanted to go to, or their hobbies, etc. I didn't force anything on them. All I want is for them to be self-sufficient. I also told my daughter that I would pay for a babysitter if she wanted to go back to school or get a job. Yes, she is only 23 years old and could still have a career, but she's not doing that. Edit. Since yesterday, I've received many comments about what a good father I am and what a terrible father I am. It's okay. I said I would apologize to my daughter, which I did. It was a long conversation, but I don't have the time today, so I can't go into details. Also, no matter how much I go into detail, some people here seem to be very interested in making things up, so it would be a wasted effort. In short, I apologized and explained to her that I'm more worried than disappointed. Thankfully, she understood. I reminded her again that I love her and will always be there for her. Also, my suspicions about their marriage turned out to be correct. They don't have a good marriage. Her husband has suggested therapy, but she doubts it will work. This time, I didn't tell her what to do. I told her that I would support her in whatever she does. I told her that if she wants to go back to school or work, my offer of babysitter still stands. And if she wants more from me, I will always do it. So, I'm still the best father ever. I'm going to give you some serious advice, and I hope you listen to it, OP. I'm the daughter in this situation. I got pregnant when I was 16. Was it a great idea? Absolutely not. But once the decision was made, it was done. Well, my mom was exactly like you, consistently bringing up things like how she thought my life would be different. She was disappointed I became such a young mother. She had such bigger plans for me. It's such a shame I didn't listen to her when she told me not to have it, etc. for years. Well, guess what? Now I'm 37. I'm happy and successful, and my daughter is 21 now, and one of the best people literally on the planet. But guess who I haven't spoken to in 4 years because I got tired of listening to their crap over the years? That's right, my mom. If you value your relationship with your daughter and grandson, it's time to let go of the dreams you had for her life and focus on being a supportive and kind part of the life that she has now. All these "you're the jerk" comments are so unrealistic. I'm going to be downvoted into oblivion, but I don't care. Your kid asked a question, asked for an honest answer, and you gave one. She's 23, not 7. Don't ask a question you don't want an answer to. I'm sorry, but I thought your answer was honest, realistic, and kind. You admitted to being happy with your grandson and loving him, but you can't lie and say that you're necessarily happy with all of your kid's decisions. I'm sorry, but not being ecstatic that your kid has no education or job experience and is completely dependent on their spouse isn't a terrible thing. It's not a dig at stay-at-home moms or motherhood. It's just worry and fear that if anything happens, his kid and his grandkid will have massive financial issues. You didn't say she herself was a disappointment. If you had, I would be going off on you in the comments myself. When she committed to this new life plan, you put your thoughts aside and supported your kid despite your own feelings, which is what parenting is. Parents don't have to be necessarily happy with their kids' choices. They do have to support them though, and you did. Am I the jerk for not inviting any of my siblings to my wedding? So I'm 23, female, getting married in a few months. And I have a few older siblings who are 34, 36, and 38. All of them are now married, and since I was a teen when they got married and they had a child-free wedding, I was not invited to any of their weddings. My oldest sibling first had a child-free wedding, and then the others decided to follow. When my oldest brother got married, I was 10, so sure, I kind of get not inviting me. But I was still extremely upset. My oldest brother got married to a woman I really love, and I couldn't even witness it. The other brother got married when I was 12, so again, sure, I get not inviting a 12-year-old, but I was a very well-behaved kid, and again, his sibling. My sister got married when I was 15. At first, she didn't want a child-free wedding, but all of the family members convinced her because, OMG, it's so refreshing to be in a wedding where kids don't bring havoc. So she decided to cut it off at 16. And when I asked, can I be the one exception since I'm 15 and I'm your sister? She said no with a very serious tone. If we make an exception for you, what about other kids? It's not fair. I got upset and screamed that what's not fair is not participating in any of my siblings' weddings. My parents got upset with me and grounded me. And lastly, my brother got married when I was 17. At that point, I didn't care. I knew there was going to be a child-free wedding and that once again, I'm not invited. I didn't ask or beg. My step-cousin who had just turned 18 made the cut and I didn't. Well, as I said, I didn't care. I sent a quick congrats and that's it. My parents got furious on why I didn't even congratulate them. I just ignored them and spent all the time in my room with my now soon-to-be husband. Since I'm getting married, I decided none of them are going to be there since I wasn't allowed to be in theirs. When they didn't get the invitations, they all came to my house and demanded to know why they didn't get one. I simply explained, you didn't want me in your wedding, I don't want you in mine. I explained how hurt I was that I was not able to see any of my siblings get married and they should experience the same. They said that the weddings had alcohol so they didn't want any young impressionable kids to be there. And I said all I wanted was to be included in the wedding part. I didn't care about the after party. Mom then started screaming about how unfair I am and how she wants all of her kids to be together on that beautiful day. Ironic, but I'm not backing down. I firmly believe in not inviting them. Am I the jerk? Update. We talked the day after I made the post. I said that the only way I'm going to invite them is if they explain absolutely everything. Otherwise, no invitation. After some weird looks and silence, the truth came out. I'm their cousin. My father's brother was raising me alone, and he passed, so I was raised by my uncle. They do not know who my mother is. I was young, required a lot of attention, wasn't their sibling, so they kind of distanced themselves from me. My brother said that he even hated me sometimes. My parents sat there ashamed for never telling me. My cousin just looked awkward. I left. And we eloped. So after all the drama, we talked and realized we were doing the whole wedding thing because we thought the others wanted it. We're not against the idea of a flashy wedding, but calm day with just the closest people were closest to our hearts. So we did just that. Just us and some of our friends. We're keeping the money for our dream country to visit. My parents had the audacity to get angry that there was no celebration, but I don't care to be honest. It was a day for us. That's it. I hope the update was not disappointing. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I'm never coming back? I'm 16, female. My mom and dad are divorced. My mom has remarried and has 3 stepkids, while my dad is still single and I live with him. I see my mom on some weekends, but I don't spend the night at her house because I like to spend the weekend with my friends. So I spent the summer with my mom. I didn't want to, but she's been telling me how she misses me and how she's going to make sure I have a good time. I said yes because she is my mom, plus she had been practically begging, making it hard for me to say no. The whole time I was at her house, I just wanted to go home. Instead of everyone washing their own plate, we all take rotations, so I'm left washing like 15 plates every other day because they serve food family style and there are so many chores. My mom didn't even let me meet friends all that much, and there was constant noise while at my dad's house. He makes me food and I wash the plates for the 2 of us. He allowed me to bring friends over, and me and him clean the house together. But since we are 2 people, the house is never that dirty to begin with. My dad let me talk to him informally. If I asked my mom, what up? Her husband would go into a rant about how I shouldn't talk to her like that, and I was left babysitting a lot there. Me and my dad go out to eat every Sunday. Like we go to a nice restaurant and try different cuisine. While here and we go out to eat, we all have to beg my mom and her husband. And if I'm feeling sad, my dad always takes me for a walk or to go get some food. If I'm sad here, nobody notices it, like I'm not even seen here. I just miss my dad and I never want to return here. My mom is sad I'm leaving and said we should do it again for every holiday. My dad is picking me up today because I start school on Wednesday, and I said that I was never coming back here and I went to pack all of my things. My mom's husband decided to come and give me a speech about how I shouldn't say stuff like this, and this just made me not want to come back here again, because why does she always report me to her husband when I told her that in private? I told my dad what I said, and he said I don't have to come back if I don't want to, but my response was a bit harsh. Was I the jerk? Edit. I'm not cutting off my mom. I meant I'm never sleeping at her house ever again. I said it harshly because I wanted her to know there was no room for debate. I didn't want to spend summer here, but she kept pressuring me to come and making me feel guilty because I don't live with her. I wanted her to know straight off the bat that I'm not repeating this experience. Update. Me and my mom still aren't close. I made it clear to her that I'm never visiting her home and that I still hope we could hang out outside of her home because I didn't like the way I was being treated, and she said okay, but proceeded to say that it's not my fault my dad spoiled me, but she will respect my decision. But I've been calling and texting her every week to hang out, but she always declines. I think she's holding a grudge, but if she doesn't want to put in any effort into our relationship, neither will I. This is just how she is. She says she's not angry, but does passive-aggressive stuff. Anyway, I asked my mom, or more like begged her, and I got a sleepover with her husband's daughter, Amy. Me and Amy have been begging for it for like 2 weeks. So she came to my house and we had a lot of fun. Her dad didn't give her any money, so my dad bought her a couple of things and some food from the food court. And in my house, I have like 3 big trash bags full of clothes that I was going to let my cousins go through because some of my cousins gave me their clothes. So it's a thing in my family where we give each other clothes that are too small or that we're not going to wear anymore. I was going to give them away, but when Amy saw the clothes and I told her I was giving them away, she asked if she could have some. So me and her went through Pinterest and I dressed her up with style and packed the clothes she liked in a big bag for her to take home. It didn't really occur to me that this would cause issues, but when my mom picked her up Sunday, she didn't have any problems. She said that it was nice that I gave her clothes, but later that evening, her husband called my dad and was yapping about how we gave his daughter our old clothes and started saying that we looked down on them. It caused so much drama. This morning he came and dropped off the stuff that my dad had bought for her and the trash bag of clothes that I had given her. I texted her and told her I would give her back the stuff on Tuesday because her school is like a 10-minute bus ride from mine, but I'm not sure if we're going to be allowed to hang out again. Edit. I wrote this around Labor Day because it happened on Labor Day. I visited her at her school and I gave her her stuff. I would have given her the clothes too, but she can't hide that amount of clothes in her bag. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to stop being a jerk and apologize? So I, 25 male, and my girlfriend, 25 female, let's call her Alex, have been together for 3 years. A few days ago it was her brother, George's, wedding and we attended. Us and a few of our friends were at the same table later at the venue. Turns out my girlfriend's half-sister, who's 26, let's call her Rachel, was invited and was assigned at the same table as me and my girlfriend. I have to note that Rachel is my mother-in-law's daughter. She had right before she had Alex, and then completely abandoned Rachel with her dad to live her life with Alex's dad. They hadn't found out about Rachel's existence until her mother-in-law confessed to George that she had a daughter before them. So George reached out and found Rachel, and she was happy to maintain a relationship with them. But Alex was completely against it and didn't even want to meet her. That's why Rachel and Alex don't get along. That was 4 years back. I also have to say that I've met Rachel and we get along well. Since Rachel didn't know anyone else at the wedding, George put her at the same table as me and Alex and our friends. The second Alex saw her, her mood changed. She kept throwing little innocent insults at her and then said she was just joking. Rachel didn't seem to mind until Alex said, "So, Rachel, how's your dad?" I almost lost it then. Rachel's dad passed when she was 15 and everyone knew. Rachel didn't say anything, but just looked at her with an almost pitiful look. She then excused herself and went to go get a drink. I turned to Alex and tell her that if she doesn't stop being a jerk and apologize, I'll leave her right then and there. Alex got defensive, saying that I'm defending Rachel because I'm attracted to her and that I want to give her a pity hookup because she's a poor orphan. She said all of that in front of everyone. I ignored her for the rest of the night, and when it was time to leave, I left her at home and went to sleep at my house. Am I the jerk? Update. I hadn't talked to Alex much after the wedding because I was still very mad for her behavior. I stayed at my house and avoided her calls and attempts to contact me in any way. She came to my house twice, but I didn't answer the door. I wanted to think, and I made the post yesterday because I had started doubting if I was right. I now realize I am. I went to her house this morning and asked her to talk. She started apologizing to me for what she had said, but I told her I'm not the one she should be apologizing to. She realized what I meant and stopped talking. I kept going, and I told her that it's over between us and to never call me again. She started freaking out and said that she would apologize to Rachel if it meant I didn't break up with her. I agreed, knowing that I would leave her even if she apologized, because she's only doing it so I'll stay. Still, I wanted to hear her apologizing because it was fair for Rachel. She called Rachel right then and there, and after a while, Rachel picked up. Alex started telling her how sorry she is for what she said, and that it had been eating her up for the past few days and she can't sleep, etc. Lies. And from what I saw, Rachel knew she was lying. I don't think Rachel even cared to hear an apology since she said a simple, "Okay," and hung up. Alex turns to me and asks, "Are you happy now?" I wasn't, and I told her. I turn to leave and tell her that I'll come pick up my stuff while she's at work. She starts freaking out and screaming at me how I tricked her into apologizing to a jerk and that it's not her fault her mother went around making mistakes before she had her, and how there's a reason Rachel was left by her mother. At that moment, I knew that whoever was in front of me isn't the same person I fell in love with. I just left. She's been calling me for hours now, but I blocked her. Rachel called too to ask if I'm still alive since she learned from George that I broke up with Alex. I told her that it's good riddance and I apologized again for the wedding incident. She once again told me that it's not my fault, so I don't have to apologize. So that's it. I'm quite happy to be honest, and it's not like I'll miss the toxicity. My Karen ex is demanding my Disney Plus password. I know my ex-wife has been using my Netflix account for many years. I didn't really mind. I'm now remarried, we have a kid, and I live far away. I basically have no contact with my ex, though I still do regularly stay in touch with several of her siblings and her father. When I signed up for Hulu and Disney Plus, I reused my Netflix password. Turns out my ex was using those services as well. I signed up to those after we were divorced. I got a notification that another password was breached and decided to begin using a password manager to make new passwords for everything. I'm also turning on two-factor authentication anywhere I can. My ex just texted me and asked for the new password. Her kid, from her subsequent marriage, really wants to watch something on Disney tonight. I've not responded, but my plan is to say no. I'm certain she'll make a production of this and complain to her family members and our mutual friends about how I'm somehow in the wrong, but I don't really care anymore. I'm not being a jerk though, am I? She's a grown adult. She can sign up for her own account. You're the jerk. It's a darn streaming service. Just share the password and get off your high horse. You obviously have the money to pay for it, and maybe she doesn't. Have you even considered that? This is also a way to stick it to these big corporations. You literally have the chance to get back at these greedy clowns, but because you can't get over your feelings for your ex, you choose to be bitter about something that happened years ago. If I were you, I'd call her up and apologize for how selfish you've been. I'll never understand how men like you can be so greedy. You remind me of my sorry excuse of a father I had growing up. He wouldn't share anything with anyone. His snacks, pops, magazines, stamps, we weren't allowed to touch any of his stuff. Long story short, once my father was so old he couldn't take care of himself any longer, he got into a low-income assisted living facility. We finally had the chance to take all of his stuff that we always wanted. I even live in the old man's house now, and once he bites the dust, it will be put in my name. Whether he likes it or not, power of attorney is all that matters, and that belongs to my big brother. Sorry, Dad. Looks like we got the last laugh. I even burned his entire stamp collection in the backyard, and I sent him a video of it. Haven't seen the old geezer smile since. Congrats! You have more issues than Windows 10. Well, what do you think? Should OP give his new password to his ex or not? Please let us know. Never share your passwords with anyone, especially your ex. Am I the jerk for stealing a name from my sister to use for my baby? I, 25 female, had a couple names picked out since I found out I was pregnant. Mindy if it's a girl, and Derek if it's a boy. However, in my last few weeks of pregnancy, I added another name to the list for a boy, Morgan. My sister, who's 28, and I have had a close relationship for a long time, So I let her know that I had another name I was considering for a boy, and when I told her, she was shocked, saying that Morgan is the name she wanted if she ever got pregnant with a boy. She has fertility issues, so it would be a while before she got pregnant, if at all. She pleaded with me to not use that name because it was a family name on her husband's side of the family, and asked me to use the name I had originally chosen for a boy, and I told her that because she's not pregnant and might not be able to even have kids, then it wouldn't matter if I chose that name or not, and she got upset by this. A few weeks passed, and I was past my due date, so I was scheduled for a C-section in a few days. After I told her this, she again asked me to please not use that name, and I told her that I wasn't sure what name I was going to pick yet, but my husband and I had already decided we would be using that name. After I gave birth, my husband and I named our son Morgan, but I didn't tell my sister because I knew she would get upset. This was my baby, and I shouldn't have to give up the name I want for the slight chance she could maybe one day get pregnant. She messaged me to congratulate me on the delivery and asked what the name was. I told her we still hadn't decided what name, so I could avoid drama as I had just given birth. My mom called her the next day to tell her about the baby and mentioned the name to her before I could tell her, and of course she got upset. She messaged me asking why I didn't tell her that we chose that name, and why did she have to find out from Mom. I told her that it was what my husband and I decided, and it has nothing to do with her, so I didn't see the point in telling her when I knew what her reaction would be. Her husband was devastated, and so was she, and now we barely talk, at least not like we used to. I told her she needs to get over it, because I was the one who was pregnant, not her. She's being really immature about it by not talking to me and getting this upset over a name. Our relationship isn't the same now, and she says it's my fault. So, am I the jerk? Edit to answer some questions. I only found out that it was a family name after my husband and I had decided on it. I wasn't trying to throw her infertility in her face. I was just trying to get her to be reasonable and see that I'm the one who was pregnant at that time, so she shouldn't get a say on what I do or don't name my baby. I didn't choose the name to hurt her or to be spiteful. I just really like the name. She still talks to me because we are family. She was my maid of honor after all of this happened, so I think she's moved past it. Or at the very least, she doesn't bring it up anymore. She doesn't seem very attached to my son, but she's very involved with my other sister's kids, which hurts, but is ultimately her choice whether or not she wants a good relationship with my son or not. I don't think that's up to me at all. Also, I won't be changing his name, and I don't think I should have to. She's decided not to name any potential kids she has Morgan because it doesn't sit right with her to use the name after I did, and I think it would be weird to have two kids with the same name, so I agree with her on that. But she won't tell anyone the new names that she has picked now anyway. You're the jerk. This line makes you the jerk. I told her that because she's not pregnant and might not be able to have kids, that it wouldn't matter if I chose that name or not. It begs the question, did you choose the name Morgan to rub your sister's infertility in her face? Summed up my thoughts perfectly. Using the name was also a bit iffy given the sister's explanation, but possibly forgivable on its own. Then add in all the other details, and it's clear that OP is the jerk. Yeah, I don't think picking that name makes OP the jerk. It's everything else in this post, from the lack of empathy to the way that it was handled. There's something just evil about the way it was written too. Just so insidious and matter-of-factly, without a care in the world or any kind of concern or kindness or empathy. It is pretty horrifying. I couldn't do this to my high school bully, let alone my sister. You're the jerk. If you were as close to your sister as you claim, you'd understand that this name was important to her and her husband. You're also throwing her infertility in her face and acting like the chance of her having kids are slim to none. She could adopt the baby too and name that kid as well. That's crappy. The state of their relationship is your fault. Normally, I'm all for people naming their kid what they want to, but it sounds like you're purposely adding salt to the wound. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
If the story had been written a little differently, they would all be siding with OP, saying that her sister has no right to decide what she names her own kid.
I made my parents homeless for getting rid of my dog. I, female 27, lived with my parents until last week. I have a dog that I love. She's been my best friend since I graduated university. I'm not very social, and I prefer her company to most people I know. I have had boyfriends and even a short relationship that ended amicably. I'm just not really interested in much beyond my work and my dog. My parents think that this is a shortcoming, but I do not. My brother also lives with us. He's in high school and he doesn't pay rent. I pay about 50% of everything in the house, including groceries. It's about the same as rent would cost, and I get the basement suite. It isn't a legal suite in the sense that it could be rented, but it is fine for a family member. It's because of building codes and stuff. It would cost a bunch of money to make it suitable for a renter. So my mom decided that the reason I'm not actively looking for a husband is because my dog takes too much of my attention. My pup has some health problems, but nothing I can't afford, and nothing that affects her quality of life. So my mom gave her away. While I was at work, I came home and she was gone, along with all of her stuff. Her toys, her leash, everything. I lost it on my mom. I told her that if she didn't tell me where my dog was, I was calling the cops and saying that they had stolen my dog and having her charged. I went to the place where my dog was and I got my dog back. I then went back to my parents' house and packed all of my stuff that was important to me and went to a friend's house. My dad has been calling and texting me, asking about money for October. I told him he should have thought about that when he allowed a crazy person to steal from me. Since my dad lost his job because of the current world disease, they cannot afford all of the household bills without my help. My dad says that they will be out of money in 3 months without me. I don't trust them anymore. My family thinks I'm a jerk for caring more about my dog than I do about them. To answer some questions I know that will come up, yes, I am on the spectrum. I may also lean towards ace, even though I have enjoyed things with guys before. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They can move into the basement and rent out the room upstairs. OP. Nice. I will suggest that to my father. It's important for you to understand that you are not here to negotiate with them. This isn't you trying to get their approval to get out. You're already out. They're not your responsibility. Your tone should convey this clearly. You are the wronged party. You stole from me. It isn't my job to figure out your problems that you create. You can try to get a roommate or rent out the basement, but this is your mess, and you two are old enough to solve your own problems. You're lucky that I haven't pressed charges. If you continue to harass me, continue to behave poorly, that will change. I have no problem with letting law enforcement decide who's right and who's a criminal. Any more missing property of mine will be met with additional charges. If you have a lawyer friend, maybe have them type up a formal-sounding letter if they don't stop. Also get some friends to go with you to move your stuff out. Warn your brother of them possibly trying to guilt him for rent, steal his future income, or using credit cards in his name to pay off their financial obligations and messing up his credit score. Make sure he secures his social and all relevant future financial documents and accounts, as should you. Am I the jerk for refusing my coworker's apology and being nasty back? I have ADHD and autism. I've been with my job for 12 years. In July of 2021, the company hired 4 new people, Tom, Jamie, Alana, and Deanna, fake names, to make the team that I work on. Unfortunately, none of the new people on my team are very nice to me because I'm odd. The only person who is ever kind to me is the new manager of our team. The new people started holding potluck meals. The first time I found out after the fact, while they were eating without me. I asked them to let me know next time and I would bake something. The second time it happened, they said it was an oversight. Oops. By the third time, I got the hint. I wasn't welcome. I was hurt, but I let it go and I just did my job. Our new manager asked why I never participate in the team potluck. I told her the truth. I'm never invited, but she swore that Alana texted me. I told her that none of them had ever contacted me except for essentials by email only, and they make a point to avoid me. When my manager confronted the group, they lied and swore they had asked me, but were unable to produce the promised text. My manager and boss decided to no longer permit potlucks on company property. The next day, they cornered me in the break room when I went to eat lunch and began to shout at me for ruining their lunches. I ended up having a meltdown. I told them I didn't ask our manager to do anything about it, that our manager said they called it a team lunch, that I was part of the team too, and she was bothered that I was excluded and took it upon herself to do something about it. I said that I knew I was weird, and that was why they didn't like me. I told them that I'm doing my best I can to fit in, but I'm not stupid. I know I'm always being left out on purpose and lied to and about, and that it hurts to never feel like I fit in no matter what. By the end, I was sobbing myself sick, and my mom had to come pick me up early because I was panicking so badly. I found out later my coworkers were put on administrative leave without pay and forced to go to sensitivity training before they could come back to work. A few days later, Tom approached me to apologize and said his nephew was autistic too and he should have realized and done better. I asked him, if someone treated your nephew the way you treated me for over a year and only apologized after getting caught and punished for it, What would you tell your nephew to do? Would you tell him to accept that apology? He quietly admitted that he wouldn't, that he'd tell his nephew to tell them to go buzz off. I told him to go tell himself that, get back to work and leave me alone. No one else even tried after that. My manager is now saying I overreacted and I should just accept the apology and give them another chance to keep the peace. My job coach says I should apologize too, but I really don't want to. Am I the jerk? A year? And your manager is saying you're overreacting? They're underreacting. Sensitivity training isn't enough. Your coworkers did this with intent for over a year and then had the audacity to shout at you when their crappy behavior was called out. My own anger at your treatment aside, I would accept the apology in time. I do think that what you said to Tom was perfect. You are 100% not the jerk. Exactly. OP didn't reject the apology directly, just put a mirror up to it. Let them invite OP out the next time and show that they mean it with kindness instead. Not the jerk, OP. Tell them it's not that you're rejecting Tom's apology, you just prefer to see it in changed behavior before you can accept it wholeheartedly. Your company can accept that as both professional and reasonable, as well as your colleagues. You don't owe anyone an apology. Never. Not for this. And please note that others didn't bother. Don't assume it's because of what Tom said. Why are they even talking about it? They should each approach you anyway and apologize. You have the right to respond, and they the duty to at least hear it. I'm so sorry you went through that. Kudos on your resilience and standing up for yourself. I hope you see it now too. It wasn't just a meltdown. Fingers crossed they change. Accepting an apology is a personal choice, not something that should be subject to a superior's order. For that alone, I have to say, not the jerk. I think you need to ask yourself if Tom's apology was sincere, and if it would benefit you to offer forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for him, it's for you. When you've thought about it, do what feels right to you. Based on what you've written, none of the other 3 people have apologized, so there's nothing to accept. I'm not sure what you would be apologizing for. Cheat on me behind my back? I'll cancel your Spotify. So after she told me she was talking to someone while we were together, I was extremely depressed. I've been getting better though, and 3 weeks have now passed. Then I realized I paid for another month of Spotify for our Duo account. I tried reaching out to her on Thursday since I noticed some odd things about her. She left work early due to an anxiety attack, so I invited her to hang out at the beach to watch the sunset. She replied to me, "It's been 3 weeks. Congratulations on respecting your first boundary with me. I'm on my way out of town, maybe next time." So I knew she was going to be driving for a while. Since we worked together, I saw she had to work tomorrow, so that means she has quite some time on the road today, Saturday. I decided I'm going to take her off my plan and it'll stop all the premium stuff that's included with it. I hope she enjoys the ads. It was petty of me, but I did enjoy this because she absolutely treated me horrible for months. But I also want to cut anything that involves freebies. I don't want to spend another dime any longer, especially since I paid for everything that we did. I'm happier now, and I know my petty revenge was a step back to my growth. However, it was nice to start moving on because I can't continue the path where my health is affected. I've grown tired of typing, but I enjoyed my laugh, and now I'm going to enjoy my time. My ex was using my Netflix account, and at one point I noticed that she was watching a series. As she got closer to the end of the series, I changed my password with probably 2 episodes left. I laughed about it for at least a week. My ex used my Hulu. He broke up with me and I changed my password, and this man had the audacity to ask me for the new password. Felt so good to say no. Hired a private investigator to watch my fiance on her girls' trip, and now my life is over. To cut a long story short, my fiance and I have been together for 5 years. Every year, she goes on this girls-only trip with her close friends. Something in my gut had been bothering me about these trips. Maybe it was the slight changes in her behavior afterwards or the cryptic conversations I'd overhear. Instead of directly confronting her, I did something I'm deeply ashamed of. I hired a private investigator to watch her during her recent trip. I got back the results a few days ago, and as much as I regret violating her privacy, my suspicions were not unfounded. The private investigator presented evidence of her being unfaithful. It broke my heart. Now I'm caught in this storm of emotions. On one hand, I deeply regret snooping and not trusting her enough to talk about it. On the other hand, the betrayal from her side feels even more significant. I love her, but I can't see a future together anymore. How do I even approach this situation? Do I confess my snooping or just end things without revealing the reason? Any advice is welcome. Just tell her you know. You don't have to give details. She's not going to tell all her details. Be glad you didn't marry her. Move on, dude. When she asks why, say that you know she's cheating and leave it at that. Don't tell her anything else. Her punishment is never knowing how you know. When you completely stump her and she has no idea how you know, she'll start yelling at you, accusing you of all kinds of stuff, insulting you however she can, anything to get you to scream back. Don't lose your cool, keep it together and just leave. Then ghost her. You're done here. Update. When my fiancée returned from her trip, I tried my best to handle things maturely. I gave her a chance to be honest, asking if there was anything she wanted to share about her trip. Instead of coming clean, she gaslit me, making me question my own perceptions and reality. Having the evidence I had, I confronted her about the affair. She was taken aback and immediately asked how I knew. I told her the truth, that I hired a private investigator. I didn't want to falsely accuse any of her friends as some of you suggested, even though honestly, part of me was tempted. She was furious. I've never seen her that angry in all of our years together. Additionally, feeling it was the right thing to do, I shared the evidence with one of her friend's boyfriends so he could be informed. It was clear to both of us that our relationship had reached a breaking point. We broke up right then. Despite it being my house that I financially covered for us, I left and checked into a hotel, giving her space and asking her to pack her things and move out. We didn't communicate for a few days. When she finally reached out, she expressed a desire to talk and perhaps find a way to mend things. But the trust was already broken and I couldn't see a future for us. I told her no. And now, the part I didn't see coming. She's considering pursuing palimony payments. For those unaware, palimony is financial support provided to a partner in a non-marital relationship after separation. I've been informed that due to the relationship laws in our state, this could very well be a real concern. I've initiated the process of hiring a lawyer. During our relationship, I took on the majority of the financial responsibilities, including the mortgage. We had an unspoken understanding. My money is our money, her money is her money, due to our significant income difference. I never thought that my generosity would come back to haunt me. There it is, the update many of you asked for. I wish I had a happier conclusion to this chapter, but life has its twists and turns. It seems she might have the upper hand in this final act, but I'm hoping for a fair resolution. Thank you for the support and advice. It's really meant a lot. I can't comment on the legal part of it because I'm not from where OP is from, but man, the audacity of his ex to cheat on him and lie and ask for money support after being found out. Wow. I hope OP walks clean out of this mess. Yes, hiring a PI could be considered shameful, but his gut feeling was correct, and it looks like his ex was only using him for his money. That's so sad, man. Wishing the best of luck. I always find it interesting how people who have multi-year-long affairs want to mend things. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Check their phone every day? Control who they're friends with? Never let them go out anywhere unless you're with them? Or do they really think they'll go back to the status quo? So odd. I feel for this guy. You can tell he really loves her. He has nothing to be ashamed of. At least he had the sense to get proof. I'm sure the private investigator did a better job than any family or friends could have, getting all the evidence he needs for his impending court case. A newbie at work said I'm not a gamer because I don't play Call of Duty. Later, he finds out I'm his senior. At my work, I'm one of the senior members of the staff, basically lower than a manager but higher than a team leader. I mainly specialize on a few specific systems, and a part of my job is to help people who have issues with them, and also I do a lot of quality control and working at the background on the said systems. It's also worth noting that possibly due to some black magic my ancestors practiced, everyone in my family looks a fair bit younger than they really are. Nothing stupid like looking 30 when you're 70, more like looking about 10 to 15 years younger than you actually are, depending on your age. Me and my work friend were discussing Persona games. I was really excited about getting P5R for my boyfriend for Xmas, and we'd been playing it a lot. My friend was saying how he couldn't really get into Persona games. He tried Persona 4, but it's just not his type of game. By the time the events happened, we were still talking about the games, but moved on Horizon Zero Dawn and how expensive the next game is, around 80 pounds. Now that's when one of the apprentices who joined recently hears us and decides to join the conversation. He says something along the lines that he plays games too and asks if I play Call of Duty. Now, I don't like multiplayer games. They're simply not my cup of tea, and the maximum I can do is an occasional co-op game with people I know, but mostly I just play single-player games. Of course I said no, I don't play Call of Duty, as I don't really like it, and for me it feels a bit overrated. The apprentice loses his interest, says that, "Maybe you're not as much of a gamer as you want to look like," and goes back to his training, telling me that I should do the same if I want to succeed, instead of talking about anime games. I think he overheard us talking about Persona. I let go a small laugh, and I carry on with the conversation that I had before with my friend. About 2 hours later, manager comes around as he wants to introduce the apprentice to the team properly. Of course, he mentions the job titles. Now the poor soul finds out my name and the fact that I'm not an apprentice as he thought, but actually I'm his senior who he has no chance of avoiding talking to while doing his job. His face turns red, his eyes are widening, and I can see he's trying to figure out how to get out of the situation, but he can't. I find the situation hilarious and just curious how this will play out, as he'll have to talk to me at some point. Holidays pass, and I had to pop into my desk today to grab something and find Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection on my desk, and a message saying he wants to apologize for what he said. What do you think? Should I forgive him or let him suffer the awkwardness a bit more? P.S. I haven't played Uncharted games yet, if this makes any difference. Update. So last week I had some training scheduled with this guy to show him some advanced bits about the job. Everything went fine, and I've thanked him for the game and decided to ask why he said what he did. I've also mentioned that I'm not here to judge him for liking Call of Duty, but he shouldn't be shaming people for not liking the games that he does. He has apologized again, and it felt he needed to talk to someone about it. He's explained that he grew up playing Final Fantasy and Pokemon games and absolutely loved them. He also enjoyed single-player games like Uncharted, Tomb Raider, and The Last of Us on console. However, when he started college, his friends started making fun of him for enjoying single-player games and basically bullied him into believing that he can't be classified as a gamer if he doesn't play games like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and that gamers must like competitive games. He felt left out as his college buddies would only talk about Call of Duty, Battlefield, girls, and parties, and felt the need to fit in, so over time he started adapting their beliefs. He even said he's not good at those games and mostly played them to talk to people and to not feel lonely. I told him again how he should never be ashamed for enjoying other games more and that a lot of gamers prefer single player to multiplayer. He shouldn't stop playing games he likes because some kids think it's uncool, and that friends who bully people to get them to do what they want are not actually real friends. He got the point, and my work colleague, who heard the initial exchange, reached out to him as well, saying if he feels lonely or wants to try something different, he can loan him some games to play, and he can always join his team in Rocket League if he needs a chat. So, I guess it's a happy ending.
Something tells me this boy's diet consists primarily of Mountain Dew and Doritos.
I, 28 male, can't have kids, and my wife, who's 27, doesn't want to adopt. My biological parents left me when I was very young, and I was adopted when I was 8. My adoptive parents were wonderful to me, and I have a brother who is the biological child of my adoptive parents, 3 years older than me. Being abandoned had a profound impact on me, and I've always had a strong desire to be a father and to have kids. I met my wife when I was 19 and she was 18. I've always been open with her about my history, providing all the details, and I made it clear that my dream was to have a family with more than one kid. She also expressed a desire to have a family, and this was never an issue. We got married, and it's been about 2 years since we decided it was time to have our first baby. We started trying, but she didn't get pregnant, so we sought medical advice to understand if there were any issues. It was then that I found out I'm sterile, and my wife doesn't have any medical problems. I was devastated, but since I myself was adopted, I saw adoption as the ideal solution. I suggested to my wife that we should adopt, but she was against it. She cited reasons that are, in reality, based on prejudice. I was deeply saddened by this because when you talk about one of those kids, you're also talking about me. We've had many discussions, but I haven't been able to change her mind. On the other hand, she proposed that we should undergo artificial insemination with an anonymous donor. I disagreed with this because it would cost a lot of money, and I feel it's unfair to act so selfishly when there are thousands of kids waiting to be adopted. Our marriage is going through a serious crisis because of this. I can't comprehend how she can hold such opinions about adoption while being married to me. I'd appreciate any suggestions on how to change her mind. I've seriously considered separation because being a father is the dream of my life. However, I still love my wife. Would separating over this issue be too extreme? I'm really lost. Edit. I forgot an extremely important point when I wrote. My wife said that if we had a kid through artificial insemination, we would be the biological parents, even though I'm not the biological father. I completely disagreed with that. I believe we need to be as honest as possible with the kid. The options ahead of you are 1. Accept you want to stay together, even though that means not having kids. 2. Attend couples counseling and see if you two can have some breakthroughs in communication. Or 3. Accept that you are incompatible on the subject of having kids, even though you both want them, and break up. Best of luck. I'm sorry you're going through this. Hi, I'm a fellow adoptee. I absolutely do not recommend that you try to convince her to adopt. I know what it's like to know that you were only adopted because one parent really wanted to and the other settled for it. To be honest, I'm shocked that her true feelings never came up before. I've spoken at length about my adoption with my husband, who's not adopted, and before we decided being child-free, we did discuss biological or adoptive. Unfortunately, it sounds like you two may be incompatible at this point. Based on your edit, I agree that you absolutely shouldn't have a kid via insemination and say that you're the biological father if you're not. However, there seems to be a lot of other deeper issues that need to be communicated between you and your wife. My opinion is that you find an adoption-competent therapist to help you really delve into your feelings of your adoption and potential parenthood. You wanted a biological kid until it wasn't possible, so you turned to adoption. I think that needs to be explored. I think before you and your wife decide to do anything, pursue parenthood or separation, it would be beneficial to speak to a counselor to ensure that you two are on the same page. I, 28 female, lost the ring my fiancé proposed to me with, and I feel so guilty. I feel like I should preface this by saying I've always been a little scatterbrained. Among the things I have lost are my car keys, my wallet. I've misplaced this one so much that my fiancé got me one of those Apple trackers, a very expensive work-issued laptop I found after 3 days on the subway. A worker held it for me. Jewelry. Fiancé once gave me a necklace and I misplaced that. Also, my mother gave me a ring when I was a young adult. I lost it a long time ago. And cash. One time I lost half the rent. You need to stop losing stuff. Are you serious? Headphones. About 3 cell phones. I almost misplaced my new one, but I realized soon enough and went back for it. A personal diary and a book of poetry, and probably other things that I can't remember right now. I should also say that I don't really wear jewelry. I wear earrings maybe once or twice a month, and a necklace if I go out. I've not worn a ring since I lost the one my mother gave me. I can't remember the occasion. Maybe it was a birthday. Here's the backstory. A year ago, we were discussing marriage and things. His stance is, my grandparents have been together for 50 years, and they only got married about a decade ago. I don't think you should put a timeline on marriage. It could be 5 or 10 years before you can be ready for marriage. My stance was, if you don't know after 3 years that you want to marry me or not, then don't waste my time. I see so many people on this subreddit and social media and in my neighborhood where the guy just leads her on for years and years. Plus, I want to own a home one day, and I do not want to buy a home with my boyfriend. I do not think it's legally wise to do so. Marriage is important, and that if something were to happen to either of us, passing, medical emergency, you need insurance, etc., then the spouse is usually covered. So I told him, you have 3 years to propose. I don't care if it's with a ring pop when I plan to buy a house. My family also pressures both of us. They have somewhat traditional views about commitment and monogamy. He took this as an ultimatum, but said that he understood. My fiancé proposed to me last Tuesday. I was ecstatic, relieved, elated, but I also felt the same. I told him, I'm marrying you, not my family's approval. The only thing I expect to change is that our tax returns will increase and we'll have a bundle of joy. I'm 35 weeks pregnant. That being said, I had this beautiful engagement ring for more than a week. I had been taking it off to wash my hands and then apply lotion. I find the feeling of metal on my wet skin to be very annoying and unnatural. I didn't even notice that I didn't have the ring on until yesterday when I came home and he asked, "Where's your ring?" I immediately started searching for it among my work things, but I knew I'd left it in the office. I hoped that no one would take it, like a coworker or a cleaning person. I went back to work, but the place is locked after hours, and I knew management would just say, "Can't you look tomorrow?" Before I went home, he called me to check how things went and to see where I was. I sort of told him that I was out, but hearing his voice made me want to cry. I stopped by my godmother's house, whom I'm close with. I was hysterical, afraid that he'd break up with me. She told me that the ring is a material thing and that I should be more careful. But I don't think he will break up with you if he's as good a man as we think he is. I got home last night, and before I went to bed, I reiterated how sorry I was and how devastated and ashamed I felt at losing something so important in a little over a week. He said not to worry, he has a solution, and that he's not mad, which I found hard to believe, but it could have been my own guilt. I went in today and checked my desk, but I couldn't find it. I asked management if they could check the security cameras, and they said that they have the ring. I was ecstatic. I texted my fiancé and he called me. I took a breath of fresh air. I was so relieved. Then he said, "Want to know what my solution if you couldn't find it was?" I said sure. And he said, "If you couldn't find it, I would have said no problem, but we go back to being boyfriend and girlfriend. And that ultimatum you gave me, it would be a moot point. I would have proposed on my time, whether it's 5 years or 10 years down the line." I was a bit speechless. He continued, "Because it would have shown me that you're not ready. Besides it costing lots of money, it's a symbol of our love, and you lost it in a week, which is crazy. Also, it's really embarrassing, because when the people we've told ask, 'Where's the ring?' what would I say? What would you say? And no, I wouldn't let you replace it. We have the baby to think about, and besides, that's not the point. I make more than he does, and I could give him the money back immediately, though I'd dip into my emergency fund." I asked him, "Could we maybe compromise, and I get a tattoo and wear it for special occasions?" He said no, and wouldn't really say much else, just that he had to get ready for work. I know what he's thinking. Like, here I spent all this money, and she doesn't even want to wear it. I also see his point, and just don't know what to do. I still feel ashamed that I can't even keep up with something so important. You need to implement the rule people with ADHD use. Don't put it down, put it away. Whatever important thing you're holding, it does not leave your hand unless it's going in one designated spot. Every single time you pick it up, it goes back to that spot. If it's only ever being put in one spot, it's much harder to lose. You know where it is. It's in its spot. Right now, it sounds like you're just kind of dropping things wherever you last used them. And of course you're losing them, if that's what you're doing. Your spot for your ring needs to be either on your finger or in its box in your bag or pocket. You never put it down unless it's going in one of those two spots. That way, you'll always find it. You need to do this because honestly, you're very lucky you haven't suffered much worse consequences for your lack of care and memory problems. The things you've lost so far could have cost you your job, your house, and your fiancé. Get your crap together and figure out a solution. Also, finger tattoos aren't as great of a solution as you might think. We were looking into them, but it turns out they rub off very quickly. In general, tattoos on the hands don't tend to last because you're constantly using and washing them. So you'd have to be constantly redoing it, which isn't a fantastic thing to be wasting money on if you're trying to get into the housing market. A lot of places won't even do finger tats because they're difficult to maintain. Am I the jerk for not backing down on my daughter's teachers calling her the proper name? My daughter, Alexandra, who's 14, hates any shortened version of her name. This has gone on since she was about 10. The family respects it, and she's pretty good about advocating for herself should someone call her Lexi, Alex, etc. She also hates when people get her name wrong and just wants to be called Alexandra. She took Spanish in middle school. The teacher wanted to call all students by the Spanish version of their name, provided there was one. So she tried to call Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, and the teacher respected it. She had the same teacher all 3 years of middle school, so it wasn't an issue. Now she's in high school and is taking Spanish. Once again, the new teacher announced if a student had a Spanish version of their name, she'd call them that. So she called Alexandra Alejandra. Alexandra corrected her, but the teacher ignored her. My daughter came home upset after the second week. I'm not the type of mom to write emails, but I felt I had to in this case. If it matters, this teacher is not Hispanic herself, so this isn't a pronunciation issue. Her argument is if these kids ever went to a Spanish-speaking country, they'd be called by that name. I found this excuse a little weak, as the middle school Spanish teacher actually was Hispanic, who had come from a Spanish-speaking country, and she respected Alexandra's wishes. The teacher tried to dig her heels in, but I said if it wasn't that big a deal in her eyes that she calls her Alejandra, why is it such a big deal to just call her Alexandra? Eventually, she gave in. Alexandra confirmed that her teacher is calling her by her proper name. My husband feels I blew this out of proportion, and Alexandra could have sucked it up for a year. The school has 3 different Spanish teachers, so odds are she could get another one her sophomore year. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but the teacher's reasoning was off. If I went to a foreign country and told them my name was Anthony and they started calling me Antonio, I would tell them Anthony is what they need to call me. It's different for a person who has worked hard to be called their correct name to have it changed than for a person with a generic name. For example, someone named John goes through life with his name correctly pronounced, and it's fun to be called Juan for an hour. Everyone sucks here. Converting names into a foreign language class is a common thing, even when it's a complete swap. It's not a personal attack or disrespect right off the bat. The middle school Spanish teacher probably gave in because it's not worth the hassle dealing with parents who think every kid's demand must be met, which honestly is what this high school teacher probably should have done for their own sanity. Your husband is right that you and Alexandra are overreacting to the situation. Your email isn't going to help either. OP even admitted that they realize it's just for a year and it's the teacher trying to assimilate the kids into the culture. What is happening in these comments? Yes, you're the jerk and so is your daughter. I'm in my mid-40s, and when I took Spanish in school 30 years ago, it was the same thing. Why is this a big deal? It really shouldn't be. My name doesn't translate to Spanish, so my teacher just gave me a different name. This is absurd to be upset about. You both sound childish. I also can't believe the comments. She's very privileged if this is her biggest problem at school. You're the jerk. I was prepared to say not the jerk, thinking this was a history or math or English class, but this is pretty typical for a foreign language class. My name in Spanish class was Jose, which bore no resemblance to my actual name. If this is such a problem for your daughter, I feel bad for her because she's going to lead a very unhappy life, and you sound exactly like the kind of mom to send emails. Well, who do you think is the jerk, OP or the teacher? Please let us know.
And people wonder why their kids grow up to be Karens. I loved the Spanish name I had when I took Spanish, and so did every other kid in the class. Some people just need a serious chill pill.
If you leave the ward, we will discharge you. In 2011, my darling daddy had to have surgery to remove one of his kidneys due to a large cyst. 2 days after his surgery, while he was on the ward recovering, he began to feel unwell, but thankfully it was something he was used to that could be resolved easily: heart palpitations. Now, Dad has been having heart palpitations since the mid-90s, and while it was scary in the early days, by 2011 it was really a simple routine. Go to A&E and get an injection from the cardiac team at the hospital. Sometimes he would have a normal sinus rhythm, but would be having palpitations nonetheless, identified by the feeling in his body. The doctor on shift took an ECG and promptly informed him that he was not having heart palpitations. He had normal sinus rhythm. He tried to explain that he had been having palpitations for 15 years. He knows what palpitations feel like, and that all she needed to do was call the cardiac team. This was a semi-regular occurrence, about once a year, and the heart nurses all knew him by name and loved him. He's quite a character. The doctor refused to page the cardiac team, repeating that he wasn't having palpitations. For a couple of hours, Dad sat there in panic, getting more and more distressed. It was outside of visiting time, so he was alone. He told the doctor that he would make his own way to the cardiac team, and she told him,
"If you leave the ward, we will formally discharge you."
Again, this was 2 days after losing a major organ. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. Dad called 999 from his hospital bed. When they asked for his address, he said, "That's an interesting question. Normally it's at my house, but right now I'm in this ward at this hospital." Shocked, the call handler asked what happened, and Dad relayed the whole thing to them. The call handler escalated the call to a manager who asked to speak to Dad's doctor and gave her a massive dressing down. Her face grayed as she realized the gravity of what was happening. She immediately arranged for a porter to take him to A&E, UK emergency room, to be assessed by the cardiac team. And what do you know? He was in fact having palpitations and had been for several hours. A quick injection later, his heart was back to normal, and we were all left stunned by the whole thing. I was in my 20s at the time, and Dad was my superhero, and seeing him crying in a hospital bed, looking so scared and small, will never leave me. I will never forget what that doctor did, and I'll never forgive her. She never even apologized to him or to us. Dad could probably have taken the hospital, the doctor, and the trust to court, but that's just not his bag, and he just let it go like water off a duck's back. 12 years later, and he's healthy and happy, but I honestly thought I might lose him because of an arrogant doctor and her stubbornness. Would I be the jerk for not letting my sister see the baby before I make a move out of state? My husband and I welcomed our first baby into the world a few months ago. To say the least, it's been pretty hectic as we're first-time parents. My oldest sister, let's call her Lily, is in a wheelchair and lives on her own with round-the-clock care. For the past 10 years, I've taken care of my sister alongside with other caregivers. Before anyone asks, my mom is simply too old and unhealthy to care for her in recent years. She's also sort of been absent from caring for her. I would go to her house 7 days a week. I was there anywhere between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day. Around 36 weeks, I took leave to focus on myself and baby. My sister seemed to have an issue with it. She complained to anyone who would listen that I wouldn't talk to her. Mind you, I was strictly focusing on preparing for the arrival of my baby and hardly had time or mental energy to conversate with anyone. Lily is very emotionally demanding. She expects your time when she wants it. Being that her mind is at 15 years old despite being 45, I could not do this. I couldn't give her more of my time than I already had. After my baby was born, I became so drained of any emotional or social energy. I struggled with postpartum depression. My physical recovery was painful and exhausting. I'm still recovering intact. During this, my sister bombarded everyone and myself for my time, saying she couldn't understand why I wouldn't speak to her. I would go off to tell her she needed to give me time to recover. This wasn't good enough, and she persisted. Finally, I snapped, told her she was not entitled to my time and that I've been struggling with adjusting and that she needed to give me time. She constantly wanted to know when I'd return to work. I get paid by the state to take care of her, or when I'd be by with my newborn. My sister didn't like my radio silence and decided to fire me in the middle of my recovery because I wouldn't communicate with her. My husband has struggled finding work the past year and it's been incredibly hard, so she really threw us for a loop when she fired me. Our main source of income is now gone, and my husband's job doesn't pay nearly enough for us to sustain ourselves. I was livid. A week or so ago, my husband got an amazing offer out of state. Being where we weren't finding work here, we jumped on the opportunity, largely due to the fact that we'd go homeless if we stood in a high cost of living area. We live in California. We didn't want to leave our entire family behind, but after searching for work endlessly, it seems our only option. Now here's the part where I think I might be the jerk. My sister hasn't spoken to me, nor I to her. Everyone knows I'm leaving except her. I didn't exactly plan on telling her, but my family is pushing me to let her see my baby before I leave. I don't want to, but at the same time, I feel it might not be worth the trouble avoiding her to appease my family. So, would I be the jerk? Edit. My return date was up in the air due to the complications I had during delivery. I had lost a lot of blood and I was in the hospital for 3 days. I kept getting extensions due to my slow recovery physically and mentally. She was aware of this. Edit 2. I'll clarify a few common mistakes. She did not pay out of pocket for me being there. There was supposed to be a temporary replacement. Her firing me was due to not having my communication as a sister, not an employee. My return date was never exact because of my complicated delivery. I almost lost 2 liters of blood and I had to recover for 3 days. I was on unpaid maternity leave by the program that I got paid through, so not having a job did financially impact our lives. I decided to tell her that I'll be leaving within the next month. As for seeing the baby, I'll ask her if she wants to, which I'm sure she will. No jerks here. This sounds like a challenging mixture of work and family. Would it lift an emotional load from your shoulders to visit your sister before you go? Would you visit your sister before the move if the baby wasn't part of the equation? If the answer is yes, visit her. If no, do whatever you want. Not the jerk. The lines between work and family are very blurred here. It's very difficult to be able to separate the two, and your sister took full advantage of utilizing and punishing you on a professional level for personal reasons, and has now also cut you off. I don't think you're the jerk. I think you would be well within your emotional rights to just cut ties and stay out with the opportunity she presented you with. Am I the jerk for my no plants or animals in the house policy? My kids really wanted pets, and so did my partner. They got a mixed breed puppy from the pound and 2 kittens. As these animals grew, none of the humans in my house did anything to care for them besides playing with them and cuddling. I got up at 5:30 a.m. to walk the dog before work. I cleaned the kitty litter boxes out. I took them to the vet. I had to buy and serve all of their food and cleaned up their eating areas afterward. People would just forget otherwise. Naturally, I also had to clean up after them when I'd arrive home, and inevitably, no one had bothered and there were messes all over the floor. If I made my partner or kids do it, they'd do a horrible job, to the point where they might as well have not even bothered. Same way with the plants. Partner wanted houseplants and to start indoor herb and vegetable gardens. Had fun with it for the first week, then totally ignored it. Dead leaves, spilt soil, bugs, etc. now proliferate in the garden area. If I don't water and groom the plants, it doesn't get done. I'm busy, and these are not my chosen hobbies. I like animals well enough, but they're a lot of work, and when they aren't attended to, destroy the house. I grew up with a family that hoarded pets, and our house was always nasty and smelly and embarrassing. I swore when I had my own place it would be different. The cats pee and spray everywhere, and I can't get to the litter box in time, and the dog chews up stuff and leaves big messes on the floor if I don't walk it. I'm the only one who will walk him when it gets cold. We have a fenced-in backyard. I bought a doghouse and announced he'll live outside from now on, till they can prove that they can take care of him better. Same with the cats. They're now outdoor kitties till my humans can show me they're ready for indoor ones. Of course, if the weather is extreme, I'll let them in. Plants are all going out. I'm done. Am I the jerk? New remarks. Hi, I've read all the responses, and I'm now going to stop with comments because I get the overall consensus. I'm going to copy and paste here what I put in another comment. I have no idea how to rehome these adult pets besides Facebook or Craigslist, and you don't really know who's going to take them. You don't know anything about the people showing up. They could be going from a bad situation here to even worse. Rehoming adult pets is not as easy as you're all making it out to be. I don't have abundant resources of time or energy to address this. It's causing problems, and this is the best solution I can come up with for now to calm everybody down. I've tried for over a year to do the best I possibly could for these pets, but I just can't anymore. I don't know how to force other people to do the right thing and be more responsible. Pets aren't just for snuggles and cuddles. They require a lot more attention and devotion. And yes, I've tried punishing my kids and withholding privileges for lack of care. I told my partner they weren't ready for pets. He brought them home anyway. If finding other homes for them is the best long-term solution, then I'll look into that. But I'm not taking them any place they can be put down, and I don't want them walking away with just whoever. I have a nice landscaped backyard with a big covered deck and patio, where he'll have a dog bed in addition to the doghouse I bought. And the cats will have little cat cozies too. It's not like I'm tossing them into the jungle. We live in a temperate climate, and of course I'll bring them inside when the weather's inclement. Where I live, which is in a countrified area, most people have a great deal of lot acreage and live down private dirt roads. It's not unusual at all to keep outdoor pets. Many people love and care for their pets, but it's very common for them to not have animals in the house. I didn't want to be like that, but I don't know what else to do. My pets, including the cats, have been indoor and outdoor all their life. The cats were not exclusively raised indoors. Now those are my excuses, and I won't give any more. I completely understand that many people feel like animals should never live outside. I'm listening to everyone here who is saying just give them away, giving them away is better, and even to people saying return them to animal control or the pound, where there's a responsibility. If they aren't adopted, they will be euthanized. Even though I do not see it like this, that's definitely a majority opinion here. So I appreciate all these responses, and I will give more thought to this, but that's all I have to say for now. And honestly, I've gotten some very horrible inbox messages, calling me all kinds of names, as well as really mean stuff people shouldn't be saying to me. Not the jerk for being frustrated or implementing a no pets or plants rule. You are the jerk for putting the animals outside though. They'll likely just be even more neglected than they are now. Outdoor cats are a public nuisance. Take them to a shelter or rescue or find them a new home. You're the jerk. Rehome the animals instead of throwing them outside. Go to your local rescue and get help to rehome them. Those animals will not understand why they're being punished, and putting cats outside after being indoor animals is quite dangerous for them. Next time your family wants an animal, put your foot down rather than allowing that situation to happen. Shaking my head. Letting animals suffer just so you can make a point really upsets me. You're the jerk. You are their parent. You raised them. If they're lazy, it's you and your husband's fault. And putting these animals outside puts them and the wildlife in danger. Just rehome them instead of neglecting them. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how they're handling this or not? Please let us know.
Nothing's worse than when your kids tell you they want pets, then you get them pets and they don't want to take care of them.
My Karen wife demands I give my settlement money to her parents. 2 years ago, I suffered an accident at work and recently reached an agreement with the company. It was a huge amount. For example purposes and to make it clear, these are not the real values. I received $100,000. I decided to divide it as follows: $30,000 for me, $30,000 for my wife, $25,000 for emergencies, and $15,000 for my parents. I'm the main breadwinner at home, and my wife and I split the bills 25-75. I don't know if this is important. Well, my wife wants me to divide the money I'm going to give to my parents in half and share it with my in-laws because it's money that would help them too. I refused, saying that this is money that is up to me to decide how to use it, and that if she wants to help her parents, she's free to use her own as she wants to. To be clear, her parents are financially stable, and my parents have absurd expenses because my father has several health problems, and basically this money would cover a year or two of his medicine. They're struggling financially even with my help monthly. She said that this money should be a joint decision and that I was being selfish in deciding its destination without listening to her. Reddit, am I the jerk? Extra, she and I are financially stable, childless, and this money is not needed to pay our expenses, so it will be used for other things. Not the jerk, but as a former insurance adjuster, I would assume that if you're not committing insurance fraud, but getting a large settlement, that you actually have some kind of substantial injuries which might require some sort of follow-up care in the future. Even if it doesn't seem like it now. In most cases, this is financial settlement. You're not getting more regardless of what might develop in the future. My vote? Don't give any of it away. Do the smart thing and put it in savings or an investment account. You're the jerk to yourself. That's blood money, not fun money. It's money to make up for your lost earning potential and any potential hospital bills as a result of that accident. I hope for your sake you have thought about your long-term financial position, including your new extra costs and loss of earning potential. Well, what do you think? Should OP divide the money with his in-laws or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for ending a family naming tradition? My family has always had this tradition where the firstborn, after the loss of someone in the family, gets the late family member's name as their middle name. My sister and I both have those middle names. Hers is Patricia, after a cousin of our mom's, and mine is Denise, after my dad's aunt. Almost a year ago, my sister lost her baby, Philip. He was the last family member we lost, and it was a huge blow to our family. I found out I was pregnant a few months ago. I waited a while to tell anyone, and my sister was the first person we told, privately. When I told her, she said it would be nice to have some positive news to focus on, and she wanted me to continue the tradition our family keeps and give my baby, if a boy, the middle name Philip. She was so happy about the idea. It surprised me a lot. I would have figured she would not be okay with it, but she wanted it. The problem is, my husband and I do not want to continue with the tradition. We do not want to give our son the middle name Philip. The name isn't one either of us likes or would ever pick ourselves. We have not announced the gender of our baby yet, but my husband and I know that we're expecting a boy. My family was saying how amazing it would be if my baby is a boy and Philip's name can be carried on. I suggested they wait until we announce the gender and the name before jumping to conclusions. They asked why, and I said we were thinking of not continuing the tradition. My family, and by that, my parents mostly, were really upset. My sister was the worst though. She asked why I wouldn't want to honor Philip and why it was him the tradition was being broken on. She asked if I saw him as meaning so little, and I said no, of course not. Then she asked if it was his name, and we didn't like it. She said she really hoped it wasn't that. I said we just didn't feel like the tradition was something that we wanted to continue. The decision has brought up a lot of bad feelings, and my sister is especially angry and thinks I'm being insensitive and showing how little I care for my nephew. I feel terrible. She's so angry at me, and my parents are unhappy as well. My husband hates them for putting this pressure on us. He said we should be allowed to name our son whatever we want to, and we should not be obligated to use a certain name. I never wanted to be a jerk, but my family believes I am. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You and your husband have the right to name your kid whatever you want. However, your family also has the right to be heard. Not only is this a tradition, but it's a tradition that honors people the family has lost. Keep in mind how rarely a middle name is actually used. Is this something you're willing to create a fight over? As you say, your husband hates your family for putting so much pressure on the name. OP. I wish it wouldn't be a fight, but I also know my husband would be unhappy if we use the name just to keep my family happy. We have both also considered if someone else in the family passes before we have a second, and then we're obligated to keep doing it. Not the jerk. It may be a tradition for your family, but it's not for your partner. This baby is both yours and your partner's, so it's up to both of you how you go about naming them. I understand your family's feelings, but these expectations that someone else who had nothing to do with deciding these traditions will just go along with it also seem too one-sided. Well, what do you think? Should OP continue the naming tradition or not? Please let us know.
Sometimes you have overbearing families and you gotta tell them to buzz off. This is between you and your husband.
Am I the jerk for refusing to take in my sister's kids after her partner had a stroke so that I can go on my planned vacation? My sister, 30 female, called me, 26 female, yesterday morning to tell me that her partner, who's 45, had been rushed to the hospital. She was in hysterics and I stayed on the phone with her until she was able to make it to the hospital. She works and her partner stays home with the kids. I do believe he's on some sort of disability or unemployment benefit though. Together they have 3 kids who are 7, 5, and 2. Here's some background on me and my sister. We had actually not spoken for almost an entire year before her most recent call to me. We really have a strained relationship starting from our childhood, which was exacerbated by our parents. I'll be honest in saying that my parents always favored me and labeled my sister as a problem child. Since her teens, she's been making really poor life choices and doing things she shouldn't be. She graduated high school but dropped out of community college. Our strict, traditional Asian parents shunned her from their lives after she dropped out of college. They effectively disowned her and pretend that they never had an older daughter. My parents haven't spoken a word to her in almost a decade, and they have never met their grandkids. For the last decade, I tried to maintain a positive relationship with my sister, but she's betrayed my trust too many times to count, borrowing money and never returning it, stealing my items and pawning or selling them, bringing me into unnecessary drama in her life, etc. To be honest, I've been trying to distance myself from her for the last 3 to 4 years since she's caused me nothing but pain, stress, and suffering. Then last night, she called me again to let me know that her partner had suffered a severe stroke and had emergency surgery. The doctors say they are still very unsure of his prognosis. She then begged me to take in her kids for the time being, saying how she can't afford any childcare and that she'll lose both her jobs if she's forced to stay with the kids. Now here's the thing. Me and my boyfriend's 5-year anniversary is coming up. We've already bought tickets, requested paid time off, and made accommodations for a 2-week trip to Europe starting this Friday. The total trip, including airfare, cost us $18,000, most of which is non-refundable. I told my sister I'd call her back and let her know after I spoke with my boyfriend. He said it was my choice completely. I decided that I wanted to go on our anniversary trip, which I had been looking forward to for a full year. I called my sister back and told her that I couldn't because of our trip. She started sobbing over the phone and lashed out at me, calling me cruel and selfish. She said that we could afford to just rebook our vacation and we didn't need that money back, but she was going to lose her job and her kids if she couldn't find someone to take them in. It was a really tough situation, but I stuck with my decision. It's been almost a day since our call, and I won't lie, I do feel a lot of guilt. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Normally in this situation, you would be the bad guy. However, with her not talking to you for a year, plus all the past history of the things she's done, I understand the decision you made. She's trying to drop all the consequences of her poor life decisions in your lap, and it's just not fair. I understand the guilt, but she wore you out and used up whatever sisterly feeling you had for her with all of her BS. Totally overused phrase, but particularly apt here. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. This is basically asking if you should waste $18,000 and 2 weeks of paid time off to help someone who's stolen from you in the past. The answer is no. While the emergency isn't your sister's fault, burning her bridge with you certainly was. She likely has other people who she can ask for help. And even if you wanted to assist, it would be more effective to pay for a babysitter than to waste the trip. It's not like being a blood relation changes anything, since from what you're saying, you'd basically been a stranger to the kids anyway. No difference in just hiring an actual babysitter. Am I the jerk for being upset about debt my girlfriend took on to help her family? I'm 33, male. My girlfriend, who's also 33, and I have been together for 1 year, and we recently started talking about our financial situations and preparation for marriage in the future. I found out that my girlfriend has a $600,000 mortgage under her name for the family home where her and her family currently live. She co-owns the home with her brother, and their family has lived there for the past 8 years. The payments for the mortgage and all other bills are paid by everyone living there, so my girlfriend only contributes about a quarter of her income to paying the loan. There are 22 years left on the mortgage, and she let me know that the plan is that they would not be selling the home once we got married, and she would move out of it, while the mortgage and bills will then be paid by her family, who will continue living there. Her parents are both older, and her mother has a disability, so she let me know that her brother and her bought the house to help their parents have a secure place to live, and this house is important to keep for her family's well-being. My girlfriend has no other debts aside from this mortgage, and she earns a six-figure salary, more than I do. She has mentioned that she's willing to work a second part-time job to help us buy our own home in the future if needed, and she also has an emergency savings, investments, and other savings to help with a future down payment. She plans to continue getting salary increases and is very hardworking and ambitious, and I'm worried about the mortgage in her name. This is making me reconsider the relationship. Am I the jerk for being upset about this? Look, if you love her and she loves you, forget about money. It comes and it goes. You both can make more to cover bills. If she makes you happy, forget about money. She's trying to help her parents. Her intentions are good. She's a keeper. OP. I know, but I always wanted an expensive house, and I don't think I can get that with her. So why shouldn't I get my $1 million home? No, I'm not a sociopath. I just always wanted a $1 million home. So why should I sacrifice that? If I leave, I might find another woman who doesn't have debt that I can achieve my dream with. My boyfriend, 33 male, posted about wanting to dump me, 33 female, for debt that I took on to help my family. Update. As you can tell, I found his post and I've broken things off with him. I wanted to post an update to let you all know. Reading his post was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through, and this situation has caused me a lot of anxiety and worry, but I'm glad I found out. I worry that I may not ever find a partner willing to stick it out with me because of my situation, but I know I have to keep going. I'll keep working hard and hoping that I'll find someone who won't ask me to compromise my values to make him happy. Why shouldn't you get a $1 million home? Because you can't afford it, OP. It doesn't even seem like he can afford the $600,000 house that his girlfriend's family lives in, on his own. His eyes aren't matching his wallet. Also, what even is a $1 million house? In some cities, that's a 2-bedroom with a yard. In others, it's maybe a place with a pool. But a $1 million house doesn't offer much clarity. Entitled ex-landlord demands I leave behind the washer and dryer that I paid for. So for the past 2 years, I, 25 male, lived in a small apartment building. The apartment didn't have a laundry room for the building when I moved in, but did come with hookups for a washer and a dryer in the apartment. So I bought them myself because I work for a wildlife sanctuary and I get pretty dirty during my work. Just the other day, I had to chase down and wrestle one of our wild boars, Bacon. We didn't name him that, he came with that name, who loves to escape his pen and thinks it's funny to play chase. I got me completely dirty. I was covered in grass stains and mud, so I very much needed them. My boyfriend and I just got engaged, and since my lease was up, I moved into his house with him. I finished moving everything out of my old apartment yesterday, and I thought nothing about taking my washer and dryer with me as I had bought them. My boyfriend had some, but they were old and kept breaking down and were costing too much to have fixed. Well, I woke up this morning to multiple missed calls from my old landlord. I left my phone number and new address in case any mail was delivered to my old place. I called him back, and he asked me why the washer and dryer were gone. I explained that I took them with me. He started freaking out, saying that he had put that the place had a washer and dryer in the ad for the place. Apparently, I have raised the rent due to them. He started demanding I bring them back because the new clients he has set up to move in had already signed the lease, are not interested in a place without them. Even threatened to call the police if I don't bring them back. I got angry and told him that I would do no such thing, reminding him that they belonged to me. I bought them and I still had the receipts from when I bought them, as well as text messages from him when I moved explaining that I was buying them myself. He again threatens to call the police. I told him to do it and see what happened and hung up at that point. Personally, I don't think I'm in the wrong. I bought them and they weren't cheap, so I feel I have the right to take them with me. My boyfriend is on my side, but today my coworkers said they think I'm the jerk for not telling the landlord I was taking them. In my opinion, that should have been obvious. I paid for them. Why would I leave them? Well, my landlord went through with calling the police because the next day they showed up. Honestly, nothing really noteworthy happened. I explained to them what was going on and I showed them the receipt for the washer and dryer as well as the text from the landlord I had from when I told him I was buying them. The cops took my statement and they left. My boyfriend's father is a lawyer and he's going to be contacting my landlord and sorting everything out. He advised me to not respond to the landlord anymore for the time being. Yeah, you're good. You bought it. He's demanding you leave your stuff. It's no different than demanding you leave your TV or shampoo. He's off his top if he thinks he's gonna get it. Wedding party, assault charges and a DUI for the mother of the groom. I own a small 16-room motel with my wife. It has an attached 3-bedroom house which we live in, and aside from our 4 housekeepers, we do everything here. We have put a lot of work into renovating the place, and over the last 6 years have done a lot of improvements, which has resulted in us being successful enough that I quit my day job and we both do this full time now. As a result, we take a lot of pride in our place, and being that it's also our home, don't put up with any BS. We each take turns doing all the guest interactions, manning the front desk, and follow a schedule. Much earlier in the year, my wife spoke with someone representing the wedding party. I can only assume the bride, but I honestly don't remember. We've learned that it's bad for business to allow wedding parties to book off blocks of rooms on the assumption that guests will call and reserve them. They wound up booking 7 rooms. The entire time they were completely disorganized, didn't know the dates, didn't know how many people, didn't know how many rooms they wanted. They called to make reservations, but honestly they had not put any thought into it beforehand, so just taking the reservations was a huge pain. We pride ourselves on our top-notch customer service, and my wife helped them get everything figured out regardless, and made sure they were sent email confirmations for everything. About 2 months later, they called and canceled 2 rooms, which was fine. We had a ton of notice, so we canceled them and emailed the confirmation. Check-in day arrives, and of course, they show up around 11:30 a.m. Check-in is at 3, without calling ahead or arranging an early check-in. We were fully occupied the night before, and cleaning was underway, but nowhere near ready for them to check into their 5 rooms. I was working the front desk that day, so asked the housekeepers to focus on the wedding rooms and work to get them ready as soon as possible, again because customer service. As expected, they are completely disorganized, don't know who gets what room, and expect me to just figure it out. I ultimately did figure things out, but then they mentioned their 6th room. I review everything and only see 5 booked, and double and triple check everything, and advise they only have 5 because they canceled 2. Immediately, the father of the bride is on my case because he claims it was only supposed to be 1 room canceled. So I ask for some sort of confirmation or anything to show me a mistake was made. Of course, they can't provide anything, and I'm playing a bit dumb because I'm the one who took the call to cancel 2 rooms and can see the confirmation email we sent them clearly and offer to print out a copy for them. After some back and forth, they advise they will just book another room elsewhere because I'm fully booked that night. I even offered to pay for it if they can provide some sort of documentation that only 1 room was canceled, knowing full well that they can't. It took about 1.5 hours to get them checked in fully, and this meant their rooms were all clean by the time the nightmare check-in was complete. So I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, okay, the headache is over. It's wedding party, so obviously my fun is just beginning. Being a small family-operated motel, we don't have a 24-hour front desk, and that night it closed at 11. As mentioned above, we live on site, so if there's an emergency, lockout, etc., you can still ring a doorbell at the office and someone is still able to help out. At 12:30, I'm about to head to bed when I see 2 clearly intoxicated people I don't recognize staggering up the office on the cameras. All I could think was, oh no, you better not be ringing my doorbell at 12:30 for some stupid crap. Of course, they start ringing it repeatedly until I'm able to get to the office and open the door. They inform me that they are wedding guests, but not part of the party who had rooms reserved. They need to get into the mother of the groom's room right now and demand I give them keys. These people were not polite. They were aggressive and extremely rude. I stay cool and politely and calmly explain I cannot just give out keys to my guests' rooms to random people. They double down and start getting very rude and aggressive, calling me stupid. It's really important, blah blah blah, and they tell me that they're there to take some purses. At this point, I laughed and said there's no way I'm giving out keys to some random drunk jerks who clearly intend to steal from my guests. Get off my property or I'm calling the police. This turns into them shouting and freaking out as I stand firm. Get off my property is all I would respond with. After a few minutes, they realize they aren't going to get anywhere and just stagger away from the office door. I go back to my living room and I'm glued to the cameras. Immediately, I see one of them start going to the bathroom in my parking lot. I was already pretty upset, so I head right outside and quite loudly tell him twice, "Stop that, you animal! Now I'm absolutely calling the cops." They did ultimately head off my property and hang out on the curb of the highway out front, off my property. I called the cops regardless. What he was doing was not okay. While waiting for the cops to arrive and keeping an eye on these people, I see 2 other wedding guests return in a car and park in front of their room. This was the only nice, polite, and friendly couple in the group. I liked them and didn't lump them in with the rest. They obviously recognized the 2 idiots standing out at the curb, so they head over to talk to them. clearly to ask what was going on. They talked for a minute, and I laughed pretty hard when they both just started shaking their heads and walked away from the other two. A minivan then pulled up and picked up the two idiots and left. I called the cops back and said, "Don't bother coming, they're gone," and thought this time, okay, that's gotta be the end of it, right? Of course not. The next morning, the mother of the bride calls me and explains that the mother of the groom is in the drunk tank and was charged with a DUI. She was the van driver, and the crazy drunk idiot at my door that night was her boyfriend. They ask me what can be done to get into the mother of the groom's room so that they can get her purse and bring it to her at the police station. I say only the person whose name is on the registration card can access that room, and made an exception saying she can call me to ask me to go in the room and give her purse to a designated person. So all this happened, and we get her stuff out and give in to the mother of the bride. Everyone else eventually checked out, and I thought that was that. 2 weeks later, we get a call from the police. They advise us the drunk idiot boyfriend is being charged with assault for headbutting someone. Apparently, after picking him up from the curb, they went back to the wedding, proceeded to continue being drunk idiots, got kicked out, and returned to my motel. They got into an argument in the parking lot, and then he headbutted her. He's claiming he just lost his balance. It was not an assault, and they wanted to know if we might have camera footage. So my wife found the footage of him clearly doing the headbutting and handed it over to the cops with a big grin on her face. My wife, who's 37, had elective cosmetic surgery, and I, 42, am having a very negative reaction to the results. We've been together for over 15 years. A few months ago, she mentioned she was going to get it done. We discussed it, and I was extremely against it. I thought the whole thing was a waste of money, dangerous, and I find the aesthetic unappealing. I shared these feelings, and she told me that she was doing it anyway, found a doctor she liked, and arranged everything. A month or so ago, she told me she had scheduled the surgery and that she needed a ride there and back and would be laid up for a few days, and the recovery was something like 14 to 20 weeks. I again told her that it was a bad idea. She looked great. I find the results unattractive and that she should really think about what she's doing. She told me her mom would take her if I didn't. Fast forward 6 weeks. The results are what she expected and she's happy. The results are what I expected and I'm mortified. I feel she's ruined herself. I'm not overreacting. Her own family thinks the results are questionable. I have heard them, so this isn't just my opinion. I've always thought my wife was beautiful, and I've told her this since day one and have maintained this feeling for as long as we've been together. We haven't slept in the same bed due to her recovery since the surgery and won't for more than likely a while. I have a hard time looking at her, and I get a deep sense of loss and sadness, and the relationship is coming off the rails. Fighting, nasty comments, silent treatment, etc. My wife is mad at me for my reaction, saying that I'm being ridiculous and unsupportive, and I'm responding with, "I told you exactly how I would feel and you did it anyway. What did you expect?" She's blaming me for being angry and distant, but on the flip side, physical attraction is part of a relationship. And yeah, she's the same person, she just doesn't look like the same person. I told her how I felt and how I feel about it. She made the decision, ignoring me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since so many are asking what was done, it wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of procedures done at once, hence the long recovery time. Not the jerk. Part of being an adult in a relationship is understanding that you can't just run off and do anything you want without talking about it with your partner first. Everything you do affects them now. A relationship must have constant dialogue about things like this. I couldn't just go out and get a bunch of tattoos, get massive gains, and buy a bunch of stuff, totally change how I look, or so on, without talking about it with my wife. It affects her. I care about how she feels. It would need to be something really extreme for me to disregard that. You're angry because she didn't care how you felt. She's right, it is her choice. But do you really want to spend your life with someone who doesn't care how you feel? My Karen wife won't let me buy the coffee I want, even though I'm the only one who works. I've lately come to enjoy some nicer coffee than I usually drink. I brew it at home, so we're not talking daily $7 drinks or anything. Instead of getting a giant bulk bag of Kirkland coffee, I've come to enjoy a $12 bag from the grocery store. It lasts a bit over a week, maybe 2, instead of $15 for about 5 weeks. My wife doesn't work. I work from home. She also unfortunately isn't doing a lot around the house right now because of a medical condition. I've been picking up most of the slack while she sits around. This has been going on for 6 months for the household, years for the job. Yes, she has depression. Yes, she's getting treatment for it. I try my best to do what I can, but oftentimes I have to ask her multiple times to help with even simple tasks to share responsibility. We've had discussions on how I know she's working on the issue, but I can't do everything on my own. I make plenty to be able to have my coffee be a splurge. She'd previously commented on the cost, and I said, "It's well within the budget, and I like it. It's fine." Edit. I'd shown her the grocery budget, which is nearly always under budget every month for the past few years. I brought home another bag the other day, and she made another comment along the lines of, "You're spending way too much on this fancy coffee. You need to go back to the other stuff." Having had to make the grocery run again after doing other household chores that morning, I snapped. The one with the job gets to make the grocery choices. Work again or contribute to the household, and you can have a say in what we buy. She called me a cold-hearted jerk and stormed out of the room. So, am I the jerk for my reaction to being called out on coffee buying? Everyone sucks here. For your part of it, it's only for saying the one with the job gets to make the grocery choices. In my opinion, that is cold-hearted. But if it really is the difference of $4.50 a week and that's within the budget, then she's being unreasonable. Not the jerk for buying the coffee you want, but a statement like that makes you sound like an obnoxious jerk. You get the jerk rating for that. If the situation were reversed, would you want your wife to be so dismissive of your concerns? You and your wife are life partners, for better or for worse, so what's yours is also hers and vice versa. Explain to her that you enjoy this coffee and it's under budget and continue to buy it if you want to, but don't act like some egotistical jerk. Everyone sucks here. As long as you're not about to lose the house or in financial troubles, she should not be dictating what you can and can't buy. It doesn't sound like this coffee is going to break the bank. She's a jerk for that. Maybe worth talking to her about why she has such anxiety about finances. It could come from her background or possibly from feeling guilty about not being able to work. On the other hand, you are absolutely the jerk for saying because you earn the money, you make all the financial decisions. You agreed to support her and she has valid reasons for not being able to work. If you don't like this situation, divorce her. But saying you get to make all the financial decisions because you're making the money is heading down the path of financially mistreating her. Comments like this are only going to make her more worried about your finances. You're the jerk. You sound like a monster, to be honest. Why do men still think it's our job to be your maids? Newsflash, it's not the 50s anymore. As a married couple, whatever money you earn is just as much hers as it is yours. When I was growing up, my dad tried the same crap, telling my mom that because he was the one working while she was watching TV all day, that he got to make the big financial decisions. Long story short, she decided to leave him and he's still paying her alimony to this day. Instead of retiring early like he planned to, he's still working at almost 70 years old and she gets to enjoy her life like she deserved to. That's what I call a win, and I hope your wife does the same thing to you for how horribly you're treating her.
And they wonder why the marriage rates are declining so much.
Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for firing an employee returning from maternity leave? I really don't think I'm in the wrong here. I feel like the devil right now, so I'll accept whatever judgment you all have. I run a team of about 6 people. Our company offers a large amount of maternity leave, 10 months. One of my employees got pregnant recently. I'll call her Jess. Our team does project-based work, and in the period between her leaving for maternity leave, we finished up the project we were working on when she left and started working on a project without her. During this period, our team had to adapt to working without her expertise in certain matters. We adapted and eventually some of us developed the skills needed to do some of her workload. The situation we have now is me and 2 others split half the work that Jess used to do, and we have hired someone new to come into the team to handle the other part of Jess's workload and then some. This new employee came at significantly reduced cost, as he was straight out of uni and we pay him a fraction of what Jess costs currently. Now Jess has come back to the team, but there's another issue. Our firm has informed us that for some stupid reason, we no longer have the budget for a 7-person team and we'll have to let someone go. The news came about when I submitted the paperwork for Jess's return. We are 5 months into a project that should take an estimated 10 months, and my decision came down to Jess and the man we hired to replace her. The reason we hired a replacement, which is not normally what we do, is because we anticipated that for this project, the workload would be far greater than our current capacity, which it is not. As you can tell by the title, I chose the replacement. I did so for the following reasons. Far cheaper, thus freeing up a lot more money than keeping Jess on. He was up to date on the project, and we would be able to move forward seamlessly, whereas with Jess, we would have to take time catching her up to speed on half the project. The clients already knew and liked working with him, whereas they didn't know Jess at all. She's been out of the field for a prolonged period, whilst he's been here for the past 9 months, so she may or may not find it hard to adapt back to work life, whilst with him it isn't a question. He performed his work better than she did hers and interacted better with the team. Obviously, the ideal situation which I wanted was to keep both and not put a new single mother with no other job lined up out in the cold, but I had to do right by the team and firm. I told her I'd write her a brilliant letter of recommendation and that in a few months she could try and apply for a job at our firm. Hopefully we'll have the budget, but she snapped at me and told me not to bother and called me a jerk and left. I know I sound cold and heartless, but I had to be fair to both employees, not just Jess, right? You're the jerk. Every single reason you mentioned was only true because she had been gone for maternity leave, which legally cannot be a reason to terminate someone. Yet it is the cause behind every reason you gave. Be prepared for a lawsuit. OP somehow firmly believes he's free and clear of all legal ramifications, and while I haven't seen what country they're in, I have a hard time believing after all his comments he can prove he fired her above board. ETA. Not to mention, he says more than once in the comments how no one was even remotely qualified to fill Jess's shoes and perform her role to the same extent she did. Heck, even in the original post, he says it took 3 people to take on her job. How can you justify firing her for anything but punishment for using a benefit her own company provided? Bonkers. I mean, his first attempt posting here said he basically fired his employee for being pregnant. If that's not admission of discrimination, I don't know what is. In the words of Andrew Garfield in The Social Network, you better lawyer up, jerk. You're the jerk. Jess, if you ever see this and the OP is deleted, I took screenshots. You're punishing her for having a baby and taking the maternity leave that your business offers? You knew she was coming back. Why didn't you hire a temp replacement until that time? You're not going to save money after she takes legal action for being fired because she's a mother. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for firing them or not? Please let us know.
If you knew she was returning, why hire a permanent replacement for her? I don't get that.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.